Chapter 2469. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Xiaoping had been cultivating in peace. After such a long time, he had finally devoured all the energy and the time law of a time fruit, and mastered it thoroughly. He discovered that his cultivation had also improved greatly, and was much stronger than before. He reckoned that if he consumed another 5 or 6 time fruits, and completely devoured all the energy, his cultivation would advance to the near ancient perfection realm. By then, he would be able to break through to the middle ancient realm, and comprehend the time law. Yes, the test is finally over. At this moment, Xiaoping's heart thumped. He immediately sensed a huge wave of information coming from the depths of the invisible token. It seemed that all the dragons who had obtained the invisible token had completed the test. Evidently, the crazy competition for the invisible token in the outside world had also ended. Although he had not walked around in the outside world for more than a month, he knew how crazy the battle for the invisible token was. Every time the position of the invisible token's holder was exposed, it would lead to a frenzied massacre. Moreover, the invisible token's holders did not have invincible power like Xiaoping. Being surrounded by a dozen Middle Ancient dragons, they would immediately fall into a fatal crisis. If they did not want to die, they could only discard the invisible token on them. Even so, countless dragons had died fighting for the formless medallion. Should I enter the core cave abode? In an instant, Xiaoping sensed a gentle spatial energy coming from the invisible token, as if it wanted to teleport his entire body away from this place. However, after he left, he grabbed with his hand and immediately used Zhuangzhou Dream Butterfly, causing Destiny Dragon Betty and Invisible Dragon Kalita to fall into a deep sleep. Then, he placed the 2 dragon whelps into the Mountain River Pearls space and temporarily settled them down. After all, he was going to enter the core cave abode next. He did not know what would happen inside. If he left the 2 dragon whelps in the outer cave abode, they would be in danger. Therefore, he first placed the 2 dragon whelps into the Mountain River Pearls space. That way, he would be absolutely safe. Even if he left the ruins, he would be able to bring them along. As for why he made the 2 dragon whelps faint, it was naturally because he could not let his secret be leaked. Boom! In an instant, the formless order transformed into a transparent spatial energy that wrapped around Xiaoping's body. The surrounding space distorted, and in an instant, he was teleported away from his original spot. At the same time, in the outer ruins, the holders of the formless medallions also felt the same power. All of them were overjoyed, knowing that they were finally going to enter the core cave abode. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Within a few breaths, all the dragons that had passed the test were teleported into a vast space. Xiaoping also appeared in this place. Master Potato. When Xiaoping appeared, all the eyes of the dragons were focused on him. The name Master Potato reverberated in their ears like thunder. This kid shone brilliantly in the ruins. He was obviously the first dragon to have an invisible token, but under the pursuit of countless dragons, he was still safe and sound until now, which was enough to prove the strength of Master Potato. As the bearers of the formless tokens, they naturally knew how terrifying a being who could remain unscathed despite being chased by countless giant dragons, and even kill other giant dragons. Even if this kid's current strength was only at the late near ancient stage, no dragon would dare to underestimate Master Potato. Vaguely, they all regarded Master Potato as their biggest competitor this time. Boom! Before they could say anything, suddenly, the void distorted in midair, and the phantom of formless dragon Theodore once again appeared in midair, still emitting its arrogant voice. Hee. Congratulations, young dragons. You finally survived the slaughter of so many giant dragons, and obtained the chance to obtain the ultimate treasure of me, the invisible dragon Theodore. You've also proven that you have the strength and talent to go through such a battle. However, passing the test of the outer ruins is only the first step. If you fail the next test, then you will not get any treasure, and it will all be for naught. This is because this dragon believes in one thing, and that is that there is only one king in the universe. Therefore, there can only be one dragon who wants to obtain this dragon's treasure, and the other dragons are all failures. Hearing this, All the dragon's eyes revealed a fiery light. To be honest, formless dragon Theodore's words just happened to be in line with their thoughts. Since there was such an amazing treasure, they naturally wanted to monopolize it. They were not children, and in the face of these treasures, they naturally wanted all of them. How could they be willing to share it with other dragons? Moreover, which dragon who had experienced such a tragic battle wasn't a proud son of heaven? Which one of them wasn't full of confidence? None of them thought that they would lose to other dragons. Of course, speaking of this, I believe you are also very curious about what this test is. Formless dragon Theodore cackled. Don't worry, this test isn't for you to kill each other. In fact, it's very simple. I just want you to play a game together. This core cave residence is actually a labyrinth that this dragon painstakingly created, a spatial labyrinth. The space inside is layered with 9 twists and turns, containing 190 million origin worlds. The paths inside are simply so complicated that even divine sense can't penetrate any of the walls. At this point, he paused for a moment before continuing. Your mission is very simple, and that is to find the exit of this spatial labyrinth. There is only one such exit, and whoever finds it first will be the winner of this game, and the final successor of me, Formless Dragon Theodore. Of course, I'm not very confident in your strength, and it's also possible that none of you will succeed or find the exit. In that case, none of you will be able to obtain my final legacy. If no dragon is able to complete this game, then this game will continue to be played until this dragon's true inheritor is selected. Spatial labyrinth. Hearing this, the dragon's heart skipped a beat. They didn't expect the final test to be so simple, and they just had to find the exit of the labyrinth to succeed. Kiki, do you think this test is that simple? Formless Dragon Theodore seemed to have seen through their thoughts. But let me tell you this. If you choose the wrong path, you will walk into a dead end. In that dead end, you will trigger the traps I left behind. You will either be buried by abyssal venom, sent to the interlayer of a spatial storm, incinerated by doomsday flames, or struck to death by lightning. In short, you need to be careful when you enter the labyrinth. It's basically a dead end, and there's only one way out. If you choose the wrong way, you'll die. Chapter 2470. What? The dragons gasped when they heard that. They thought that the labyrinth was safe, but now it seemed to be a maze of death that was many times more dangerous than the first round. As long as they entered and chose a path, they would definitely die. It was not as simple as a slim chance of survival, but a slim chance of survival. For a moment, they felt uneasy and did not know what to do. TSK. Of course, if you want to leave now, you can teleport out of the core grotto mansion and leave safely. However, once you enter the maze, unless you find the only way out, you will die for sure. Even if you don't get killed by the traps, you will be trapped here until the successor appears. Theodore's silhouette continued to chuckle. Of course, if the successor never appears, the dragons in the labyrinth will remain trapped. He gave the dragons 2 choices. The first was to fight to the death, but it was a slim chance of survival. The second was to give up on the inheritance and leave this place. In fact, this was not necessarily a bad thing. At the very least, they had obtained many treasures in the outer ruins, which could be considered a huge harvest. Sometimes retreating was not necessarily a bad thing. Giving up was also a form of courage. It was smart to know one's limitations. For a moment, the dragons were also self-aware and their eyes flickered as they fell into for them to pass through this was a difficult choice labyrinth. That was because the invisible dragon's treasure was too attractive. A great opportunity is right before your eyes. It was equivalent to obtaining a bright path to fight the invincible realm. How laughable! And becoming a dragon even tell others that could rival a country in the dragon realm. I fear that the other identity it had in the past or what bloodline it had, a middle ancient dragon stood out and sneered without fear. It would definitely become a pinnacle dragon. Others will fight for one of the top existences if you don't fight in the dragon realm. Others will fight for it. I give up. If you don't fight for it, others will fight for it. A giant dragon stood up and said, "This is the way of the world. I know my limits. If you don't move forward, this is a space maze built by a giant dragon. If you stay where you are, that has reached the invincible realm behind by others. Even a giant dragon of the same level would have a headache without paying a price if it were to come here. Since you are afraid of death, I don't have a deep understanding of the law of space. I've lived enough in this life. I'll
There's
probably
no
be
reason
trapped
for me
until
to
the end
let
of
go
time.
of a chance
There's
to
no
advance
chance
to
for
the
me to find the
invincible
only
realm.
way out.
Another
In
middle
the outer
ancient dragon
ruins,
stood
I've
out as
obtained
well.
many treasures.
In the blink of an eye,
To be honest,
more
I've
than a
gained enough
dozen
this
giant
time,
dragons
so I
expressed
don't
their
need to
desire to
continue
enter the
risking my
labyrinth,
life to obtain this
choosing one of the
inheritance.
paths and
That's why I
disappearing
choose
before
to
the
give up.
eyes of the other dragons.
Its expression was very
Kiki,
calm.
not bad, not
and
bad.
it was obvious
It
that
seems
it had
that
made
there
a
are some
decision.
courageous
That's
dragons
a smart
among
choice.
the younger
Only a
generation
dragon
of the
with
dragon
self-awareness
race.
can live
The
a long
formless
life.
dragon Theodore
In that
cackled.
case,
You
he
should
had leave
remain
this
neutral
place.
throughout.
The
And it was
formless
his
dragon
choice to
Theodore
give up or
waved its
challenge.
claw.
Even
And
so,
the dragon that
most
had
of the
chosen to
giant
give up
dragons
was
remained where
teleported
they were.
away.
Hesitating
Following that,
and not making
a
a
few more
decision
giant
so
dragons
quickly,
expressed
it was
that
as
they
if
had
they were
clearly given
observing
up
what
on
would
this
happen
competition.
after entering the labyrinth. Perhaps they could gain some experience from the experiences of the giant dragons who had entered the labyrinth. Interesting. Xiaoping stood among the dragons, saying nothing as well. Instead, he activated the golden crow's eyes of hell in an attempt to see through the space labyrinth created by the formless dragon Theodore. Under the vision of the golden crow's eyes of hell, the structure of the labyrinth was revealed to him. Just looking at the entrances alone, he discovered that there were more than 10 million of them. Each of the spatial entrances seemed to lead to a different area and into a different spatial world. Some of these spatial worlds were dangerous enough to destroy a saint, while others were safer. If one was unlucky, they would fall into a dangerous spatial world. In fact, this entrance was just the beginning. After entering, there would be many more forks in space, and there were thousands or even tens of thousands of them. Only one of them was safe. If one made the wrong choice, they would immediately fall into a trap and die. There were as many as 1 million similar forks in the labyrinth. Moreover, there was no pattern to these forks, and they were all messy and changing at every moment. Sometimes it would be one in 1 second, and another in the next. To find a truly safe spatial path, one must be extremely proficient in the laws of space, and sometimes a little bit of luck as well. Could it be that this fellow is choosing a dragon that's proficient in the laws of space as its successor? Does it also want to choose an invisible dragon as its successor? Xiaoping stroked his chin as he pondered over Theodore's thoughts. As a matter of fact, it was not impossible. As an invisible dragon, Theodore naturally had a good impression of other invisible dragons of the same race, and it was normal for him to choose an invisible dragon as his successor. Moreover, one's comprehension of the laws of space had to reach an extremely profound level in order to pass through the space labyrinth, or one would not be able to find a safe passage. But no matter what Theodore was thinking, this space labyrinth could not stump him at all with the golden crow's eyes of hell, and all spatial traps could not escape his eyes. With that thought, he did not hesitate, and immediately flew into the labyrinth. Master Mateto has set off. The many dragons immediately saw the famous Master Mateto enter the space labyrinth. They knew that he might not give up, but they did not expect him to make a decision so quickly. Chapter 2471. This Master Mateto is really bold, isn't he afraid of death? This is the space maze built by the invincible dragon Theodore. The purpose is to choose the true successor. How can it be so easy to pass through? Who knows, maybe this Master Mateto has a trump card. Oh, a trump card. Which dragon here doesn't have a trump card? That's true. But the dragons who can pass the test are far more powerful than the dragons of the same rank, proud and arrogant, and think that they can do it. It's a pity. If this Master Mateto dies in the space maze, then won't his red blood dragon divine grass, enlightenment flower, and other holy medicines be lost in the maze? If so, then it's really a reckless waste of God's gifts. Many dragons were talking about it. They did not expect that this Master Mateto would really have the courage to risk his life to enter the maze. They were also a little worried. If this Master Mateto died in the maze, they were afraid that he would never be able to bring out his holy medicines, which would be a great waste. But no matter what, they couldn't stop him. Easy, it's too easy. Xiaoping put on the primordial magic treasure formless mask, hid his breath, and changed into the appearance of the invisible dragon. It seemed that at this moment he had become the son of space. He could easily perceive any space fluctuation, and could easily integrate into the void. Coupled with the power of the formless mask, It was estimated that even a saint who had reached the invincible realm would not be able to perceive his existence. At the same time, he also operated his hell golden crow's eyes, understanding all the mysteries of the space maze. Even if a space fork appeared, it could not stop his action. Whoosh! His figure flashed, and he fell over, choosing the only safe space passage. Even the invisible dragon of the primordial realm could not have such a fast speed. He felt that this space labyrinth was created just for him. But the other dragons were not so lucky. Although they dared to enter the space maze, they also had a considerable degree of confidence in themselves. But the problem was that the space traps built by the invisible dragon Theodore were really beyond their imagination. Every time, the number of spatial forks that appeared was frightening and dazzling. Moreover, there were also many seemingly right, but actually wrong spatial traps. If one were to accidentally walk into one, they would either die or be injured. Some of the giant dragons accidentally took a wrong spatial path and immediately fell into a dark prison. Everywhere was filled with dark elements like chaos. They couldn't break free, couldn't think, couldn't breathe, and seemed to be imprisoned in this place forever. Some dragons confidently chose one of the directions, but they ended up entering a fiery hell. This place burned with eternal and inextinguishable holy flames, which even dragon flames couldn't compare to. Even with the strength of an ancient Middle Realm cultivator, there was no way they could withstand the otherworldly flame. Within a few breaths of time, they would be burned to ashes. They wouldn't even have the time to use their magical treasures. Some of the dragons were very careful, but they still chose the wrong path. They fell into a world of ice and snow, and everywhere was filled with bone-chilling winds. In just an instant, the dragon's body was frozen, and even its soul was frozen. All that was left on the ground was a lifelike ice sculpture. Apart from that, many of the giant dragons that entered the spatial maze also met a tragic end, dying in various ways. At this time, at the end of the maze, there was a luxurious palace filled with treasures. A gigantic specter suddenly appeared on a tall throne, its body emanating a terrifying aura that could freeze time and space. If any other dragon were to enter this place, they would definitely be able to recognize the specter as the formless dragon Theodore. Haha, fools. What a bunch of fools. At this moment, Theodore was sitting on the throne. Through the restrictive formation, he could easily see everything that was going on in the spatial maze. Not a single trace of a dragon could hide from him. These foolish juniors really think that I'm so kind as to hand over all my treasures. All of them belong to me, and no one can take them away. He was smug. If the dragons in the outside world saw this, they would definitely be shocked that the infamous formless dragon Theodore was still alive. In reality, Theodore had indeed heavily injured the formless dragon in the ancient war against the abyssal demons. No life could escape from a war that swept across the entire universe. Even the cunning and cowardly formless dragon Theodore was unable to escape. He was forced to participate in the war in the end, and was heavily injured by a few abyssal demon kings, causing his soul to collapse. As a result, Theodore used his last breath to flee from the battlefield in a hurry. He returned to his lair in the dragon's realm in hopes of finding a way to save himself. Unfortunately, his wounds were just too heavy. Even after expending a tremendous amount of energy and countless treasures, he was unable to stop the gradual descent into death. Fortunately, he possessed a saint medicine he had obtained from the forbidden zone of darkness, the undying soul fruit. The fruit only had a single effect, which was to turn living beings into specters after death. No matter how heavily injured they were when they were still alive, they could be revived rapidly after ingesting it, and become an undying specter. Originally, he did not want to turn into a specter if he had a choice, but he had no other choice in order to survive, so he could only ingest the fruit. And the result was also very smooth. At the moment of its death, all the curse, darkness, weakening and karma power quickly disappeared, and its soul, under the power of the undying nether spirit fruit, was quickly reborn, turning into an undying spirit. The problem was that the fruit had a very great side effect. Once he became a specter, he would lose all of his power, and could not cultivate anymore. He could only become an eternal existence like this until the end of time. Once he was discovered, he would probably be enslaved by others and suffer a miserable fate. Without strength, he would be like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. However, Theodore had already thought of a second method to escape this predicament, which was to take over a dragon's body. He would use the power of an undying specter to take over the body of a dragon. That way, he would be able to revive in this world and continue to grow stronger. However, if he wanted to take over a dragon's body, it would not work if the body and soul were too powerful, or it would not work if the body was too weak, or the body would not be able to contain his soul. An invincible dragon would explode on the spot. After much thought, Theodore set up various laws in his dwelling to prevent dragons greater than ancient dragons from entering. Moreover, in order to select the soul of an invisible dragon that was suitable for it, and select a dragon with extraordinary talent, it had also set up various conditions. Any dragon that could pass the screening was basically a veteran of hundreds of battles, had extraordinary talent, and had a powerful physical body. Chapter 2472. Kaka. This dragon isn't bad. It has a strong physique, and can definitely withstand my soul. However, its talent isn't that great, and it's not worthy of my great invisible dragon. The invisible dragon Theodore pointed. That reflective dragon seems alright as well. It seems to be a special dragon with top-notch abilities that can reflect all energy and physical attacks. However, it's too ugly and affects my great image. That transparent dragon isn't bad. It has the special ability to be transparent, similar to my invisible dragon, but its combat ability is too weak. It's only suitable for sneak attacks, but its life-saving abilities are top-notch. It can be used as a backup dragon. It watched as the dragons entered the maze one after another, carefully selecting the ones that could carry its body. The reason it had set up so many traps in the maze was so that the dragons would fall into a state of near death, so that they would have no power to resist its possession. To be honest, it did not intend to let any giant dragon pass its labyrinth test. The entire labyrinth was under its control, even if a dragon could really pass the labyrinth. Even if there were dragons that could pass it, it could still manipulate the restrictions of the maze to blast the other party to death or grievously injure them. In short, everything was under the control of the great invisible dragon Theodore. Kaka. The final victor of this universe is still me, the great Theodore. The invisible dragon cackled, revealing a treacherous expression. Boom! Just then, as the invisible dragon Theodore was carefully selecting the dragons on the screen, the palace doors were suddenly forced open, and a figure flew in. It was none other than Xia Ping, who had easily passed the maze test. The invisible dragon Theodore was dumbfounded. It stared blankly at Xia Ping, who had suddenly barged in, unable to say anything as if its brain had gone haywire. It would never have imagined that such a dragon would appear at such a critical moment. To be honest, Xia Ping was also shocked at the moment. He did not expect a silly phantom dragon to appear at the end of the maze, and was even sitting on a strange chair. After all, shouldn't this palace be Theodore's lair? There should be no one here. Could it be that there was a dragon faster than him, beating him to the punch? If that was the case, wouldn't it mean that all his efforts were in vain? One dragon and one human, they just stared at each other, seemingly unable to say anything. It was quiet for a long time. In the end, it was Xia Ping who broke the silence. Is this the palace of the formless dragon Theodore? Yes, yes. Theodore answered instinctively, but halfway through his answer, he realized that something was amiss and yelled. And no. How did you barge in? It was simply insane. According to its estimation, no dragon should be able to pass its labyrinth test. Moreover, under its constant monitoring, even if there really was a dragon with such an ability, it would be immediately discovered and killed in the cradle. But what was going on? The trial had not even started for a long time. How could this dragon pass through the labyrinth that he had painstakingly created without making a sound? That didn't make sense. Even if this brat really had such an ability, it was impossible for him to escape from its senses under its surveillance. But what was going on now? But how could the formless dragon Theodore know that there was a primordial magic treasure in this universe called the faceless mask that could change one's form and conceal one's aura. With such an ability, even a saint who had reached the invincible realm would not be able to detect it. Not to mention that Theodore, who had turned into a phantom dragon, had lost too much of its strength. Faced with Xiaoping's speed and ability, it could not detect anything at all. Therefore, unknowingly, Xiaoping easily passed the test and arrived at the end of the labyrinth, the palace of the invisible dragon. Did I just walk in like that? Now that I've passed the test, can I obtain the treasures and inheritance of the formless dragon? Xiaoping asked. Pass the test, my ass. You're cheating, do you know that? Get out of this place right now. The treasures of the formless dragon aren't something a weak dragon, like you can lay a finger on. How could the formless dragon Theodore tolerate the fact that the evil dragon wanted his treasures? He immediately cursed and wanted to drive the kid out. What a joke! Everything in this treasure belonged to him, and no one could take it away. A little phantom dragon dares to be so arrogant with me? Be a good boy and get lost. Xiaoping cast a sidelong glance at it. Why would he care about the threat of the little phantom dragon? He immediately attacked. Hell's magical power, soul-binding chain. This was one of the Hell's magical powers that he had obtained after killing some nether ghosts and demons in the Hell plane. It had a great restraining effect on souls. In the blink of an eye, a black chain condensed from the power of Hell appeared. Each chain was engraved with hellish characters and emitted an unfathomable aura that could lock one's soul. Any soul would have nowhere to hide in the face of this chain. Dong! In just an instant, the specter dragon did not know what had happened. The soul-binding chain immediately rushed over and pierced through the specter dragon's body, binding it tightly and making it unable to move. Even all of the phantom dragon's power was sealed by the soul-binding chain, and it could no longer run rampant. Ah, damn junior dragon. You dare treat the mighty formless dragon Theodore like this? You're dead, you're dead. Do you understand? The phantom dragon immediately screamed. How could it have imagined that the kid would act so quickly? It didn't even have the chance to activate the restriction formation and kill the kid. But in just an instant it was completely controlled and sealed. The soul-binding chain even emitted electric currents from time to time, making it feel numb all over, as if it was being tortured. Although it wouldn't die for now, the pain was unbearable. Formless dragon Theodore? Interesting. You're not dead, but have become a phantom dragon? Xiaoping's eyes lit up when he heard this. He felt like he had discovered some great secret. No, you heard wrong, you heard wrong. How could I be Theodore? He died countless epochs ago. The phantom dragon Theodore immediately became vigilant. It laughed awkwardly and repeatedly denied it. If this junior dragon found out that it was the formless dragon Theodore, then it would be completely finished. But these words were basically a lie. How could Xiaoping believe such nonsense? He immediately used the soul-binding chain to interrogate it. Chapter 2473. Xiaoping tortured the specter dragon for 2 hours. Although the specter dragon was reluctant to admit its identity at first, it could not withstand the torture, and could only admit that it was Theodore the formless dragon. Moreover, it had no choice but to reveal the true purpose of the assessment. Interesting. You want to possess another dragon, just by relying on your specter dragon? Xiaoping gave it a sidelong glance. What kind of look is that? How dare a little junior like you speak to the great invisible dragon Theodore like that? Do you know that I could kill hundreds of you with one finger when I was at my peak? The invisible dragon Theodore bristled at those words. Such a look was looking down on dragons. After all, it was once one of the top beings in the universe. Although it was a little timid, its strength was not for show. Judging by your appearance, I don't think you got there through hard work, but by taking pills. You're completely fake. Xiaoping said disdainfully. How do you know? The invisible dragon Theodore was shocked. It was true. Based on its temperament and strength, it should not have been able to reach the invincible realm and comprehend the laws of life and death. However, it was an invisible dragon with great luck, able to enter and exit all kinds of dangerous situations at any time. During one of its adventures in the dark forbidden zone, it actually found a precious divine medicine. After taking it, it naturally advanced to the invincible realm and comprehended the laws of life and death. The problem was that the strength it gained through taking pills made it the lowest existence among the invincible realm saints. Only its ability to escape was top-notch, but its combat strength could not keep up. Even so, it could easily crush all dragons under the invincible realm. Therefore, in the war, it specialized in bullying those whose realm was lower than its own. Unexpectedly, at the critical moment, when the real battle came, it could no longer play tricks, and its true strength was revealed. Haha, I can see the essence of life at a glance. From the first time I met you, I knew you were a complete loser. Xiaoping stood with his hands behind his back. You! The invisible dragon Theodore was so angry that his face turned green. He wanted to strangle the bastard. Alright, enough with the nonsense. Tell me how to control this palace. With a single glance, Xiaoping could tell that the invisible dragon's palace was a sacred artifact. Moreover, it was a peerless sacred artifact, a priceless treasure. If he could control this palace, it would be equivalent to completely controlling the invisible dragon's core immortal cave. In fact, the reason why the invisible dragon Theodore was able to flee so quickly on the battlefield back then was because of this supreme quality saint artifact, the Formless Hall. It was equivalent to many years of hard work. The invisible palace was a flying spatial magic treasure. It often used the invisible palace to travel around and explore all kinds of secret realms. It could travel through space at will and penetrate all kinds of restrictive arrays. Furthermore, its defensive abilities were also extremely powerful. It could resist soul attacks and physical attacks, and it could weaken them by more than 90%. Even if it encountered the attack of an invincible realm saint, it could resist for a long time. Moreover, if the situation was not good, it could escape at any time, merging into the depths of the void, making it impossible for others to catch it. It could be said that the invisible dragon had simply forged the palace into a tortoise shell. It was hundreds of times more powerful than the stars on Xiaoping's body. It was a true life-saving artifact. Dream on, you must be dreaming. This is the palace of the great invisible dragon Theodore, the Formless Hall. How could it be controlled by a despicable junior dragon like you? You must be dreaming. The invisible dragon Theodore bared his fangs and brandished his claws. This was his life savings, and it was not enough to describe the treasures stored here. How could he be willing to let it go? Not to mention the treasures in the palace. Just the peerless sacred artifact, the Formless Hall, was a priceless treasure. If it was released to the outside world, who knew how many holy dragons would fight to the death for it? Even invincible realm dragons would not care about their pride and personally try to snatch it. Is that so? Xiaoping gave him a sidelong glance. Crackle, crackle, but before the invisible dragon could say anything, Xiaoping gently waved his hand, triggering the punishment power of the soul-binding chain. In an instant, the invisible dragon Theodore cried out in pain. Master, I was wrong. The formless hall belongs to you. After being electrocuted, the invisible dragon Theodore knew what to do. He immediately expressed his willingness to cooperate and hand over the method to refine the formless hall. It showed the look of a loyal pug. After all, he had no choice but to lower his head when under the eaves. He was no longer the famous invisible dragon Theodore, but a mere resurrected useless phantom dragon. How could he be a match for this hateful junior dragon? If he continued to resist stubbornly, he would probably be punished miserably. Hateful junior dragon, just you wait. I'll let you be complacent for now. When I find a chance to get rid of you, I'll definitely get my revenge. Just you wait. The invisible dragon Theodore gnashed his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to capture this hateful fellow and give him a good beating. He decided that he would kill this fellow once he recovered his strength. No, he couldn't kill him. He couldn't let him off so easily. He should imprison him and make him work all day as his servant. He could beat and scold him whenever he wanted. Not bad. Xia Ping was very satisfied when he heard that Theodore had handed over the method to refine the peerless saint artifact formless hall. He knew that the method was genuine. This fellow was very sensible and didn't lie. With that thought in mind, he walked up to the dragon throne that Theodore had been sitting on. This throne was the core formation of the palace, and as long as he could refine it, the control of the palace would belong to him. Boom! His immense magic energy and powerful consciousness immediately seeped into the throne, completely expelling the spiritual imprint left behind by the invisible dragon Theodore. If it was still the spiritual imprint left behind by the invincible dragon Theodore, he naturally wouldn't be able to expel it so easily. The problem was that the invisible dragon Theodore had died a long time ago, and had only come back to life with the undying nether soul fruit. Therefore, the original spiritual imprint had long since collapsed. The one refining the palace was only the spectral dragon Theodore, and the spiritual imprint left behind by the spectral dragon Theodore was too weak. In fact, it was even weaker than a sempiternal realm dragon. That was also why he could easily expel the spiritual imprint and replace it with his own. Whoosh! In an instant, Xia Ping sensed that his soul had permeated the entire formless hall and gained control over all of the palace's formations. He felt as if he had reached the realm of becoming one with the artifact, and he knew the artifact like the back of his hand. Chapter 2474. I see. After refining the formless palace, Xia Ping immediately understood the peerless saint artifact like the back of his hand. He could sense that the peerless saint artifact had a total of 3 abilities. The first was dimensional escape. In times of emergency, it could instantly flee into another dimension and traverse across 3,000 worlds. No laws could restrain it, allowing it to move extremely quickly. The second was void concealment. It could conceal one's presence and stay in the void of space. In this state, no living being would be able to discover the existence of the formless palace. Of course, it could not attack others either, or it would immediately be exposed. The third was space-time defense. It could weaken an enemy's attacks to the greatest extent, be it physical or soul attacks. Anything that did not exceed the limits of the formless palace's defenses would be completely immune. Even if it exceeded the formless palace's defenses, it could weaken over 90% of the enemy's attacks. The palace could be described as a tortoise's shell, a war fortress that would never fall. Apart from that, the formless palace had no other abilities. Xia Ping was completely impressed by the invisible dragon Theodore after looking through these abilities. The word fear of death was used to the extreme. Every single ability of the peerless saint artifact was for escape and survival. It could be said that the formless palace had no other powers apart from its ability to protect itself. It was a powerful saint artifact forged after sacrificing its offensive capabilities. It was the pinnacle of defense. However, it had to be said that it was precisely because of this that it became one of the saints with the greatest ability to protect itself in the universe. There were not many saints who could kill it. Even with that being the case, there was basically no place in the universe that was safe in a war that involved the entire universe. It would still be hard for it to escape death. Even if it could just barely survive with the treasures it obtained from the forbidden zone of darkness, it would only turn it into an undying specter, forever trapped in that state. However, this peerless saint artifact had completely benefited Xiaoping. With this peerless saint artifact, his defense would be so powerful that it would make one's hair stand on end. There probably wouldn't be many saints who could kill him if he went out with it. However, the artifact spirit of this peerless saint artifact seems to have been destroyed. Xiaoping squinted his eyes. He had originally wanted to communicate with the artifact spirit of the peerless saint artifact, but he discovered that the artifact spirit had already become an empty shell. It was as if during the War of the Primordial Era, even though the invisible dragon Theodore had fled for his life, the shockwaves still managed to kill the artifact spirit of the invisible palace, causing its soul to perish. If that wasn't the case, it wouldn't have been so easy for him to refine this supreme grade saint weapon. Looks like there are only two ways to make this supreme quality saint artifact recover to its peak condition. The first is to nurture a new artifact spirit, but this method will require a large amount of time and effort. It won't be effective in a short period of time. Xiaoping rubbed his chin. The second method is to find another weapon spirit and fuse it into this supreme grade sacred weapon, completely replacing it. To tell the truth, he felt that the second method was very feasible, and he just happened to have such a tool spirit by his side, Corinne. Corinne, as one of the top brains in the universe, after years of training, is actually no different from a tool spirit. Moreover, if Corinne becomes the Invisible Palace's artifact spirit, Corinne's life level will also increase, and he can rest assured to hand over the Invisible Palace to him. Corinne. Thinking of this, he immediately told his idea to Corinne, wanting to see what it thinks. If Corinne doesn't want to, he won't force it. What did you say? I have the opportunity to become the tool spirit of a supreme grade saint weapon, and you're asking me whether I want to or not. Isn't this nonsense? You want a beggar to be the emperor. Let's see whether he is willing or not. After hearing these words, Corinne immediately became excited, extremely excited, because for it, this was simply an eternal opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Although it is the top brain in the universe, but even so, it is still at the bottom of the universe, because it has no way to grasp any power. It only has auxiliary ability, nothing more. It is only suitable to be a ghost in the virtual network, and outside the network world, anyone can bully it. But now it is different. If it can become the tool spirit of a supreme grade saint weapon, it would simply be like changing a bird gun to a cannon, instantly grasping the top power in the universe. This is equivalent to standing at the peak of all magic weapons. Which idiot would be willing to refuse? Damn it! Hearing this, Azure Ox gnashed its teeth in anger, extremely jealous. It had gone through untold hardships and spent God knows how many resources to upgrade its magic weapon to the level of a high-grade saint weapon. And upgrading it to a supreme-grade saint weapon was still a long way off in the foreseeable future. But now this idiot Corinne, without doing anything, unexpectedly became the tool spirit of a supreme-grade saint weapon. If this isn't dog shit luck, then what is it? This is too enviable. However, it also knows that it is not suitable to become the tool spirit of the Invisible Palace. After all, it is already the tool spirit of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers, and has long since fused with this magic weapon, deeply rooted, and difficult to get rid of. Since you are willing, that is for the best. Hearing this, Xiaoping immediately felt relieved, and without any hesitation, he grabbed Corinne's soul with his big hand, formed a seal with both hands, and integrated it into the core restriction array of the Invisible Palace. Rumble! In an instant, Corinne's soul integrated into the core of the Invisible Palace. As the top AI in the universe, its computing ability can be said to be first class. It sensed countless law information transmitted from the depths of the Invisible Palace, just like a torrent. Even as the top AI in the universe, it was almost unable to handle this huge flow of information, and was on the verge of crashing. But with Xiaoping's help, it instantly controlled the power of the Invisible Palace, allowing Corinne to slowly grasp all the power of laws inside this supreme-grade saint weapon. After half an hour, Corinne finally woke up, and his pair of cat eyes emitted a frightening radiance, seemingly flowing with countless law information and indistinctly, countless law chains entangled with each other, brewing in the depths of his pupils. How is it? Xiaoping curiously asked. Very good, I feel better than ever. Is this the feeling of having power? Corinne was very excited. I have already grasped the initial control of this supreme-grade saint weapon, and can also mobilize a part of the space-time power. However, it will still take a long time to completely grasp this supreme-grade saint weapon, but it is only a matter of time. It felt that this was an unprecedented wonderful feeling, coming out of the virtual world, and coming to the real world, grasping the top power of laws in the universe, and each and every one of its movements was like that of a creator. It seemed that at this moment, it had obtained a new life, evolving from a virtual character into a living being with a corporeal body. Chapter 2475. It's over, it's all over, it's all over. The formless dragon Theodore's face turned green at the sight of this. He was furious. He had left behind a trap in the restrictive formation inside the invisible palace, so that he could catch this shameless bastard off guard after he recovered his strength. However, he did not expect this kid to create an artifact spirit out of thin air, and completely control, and replace his natal artifact, the invisible palace. This way, the little tricks he left behind in the invisible palace would be useless. As long as the artifact spirit took complete control of the invisible palace, his trump card would definitely be exposed. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He had worked so hard for so long only to end up benefiting someone else. He could not accept this. Hee Xiaoping, there are a lot of treasures stored in this palace. We've hit the jackpot. Corinne mischievously laughed, feeling very proud of himself. Oh, what treasures are stored? Xiaoping naturally knew that this place was Invisible Dragon Theodore's lair and core cave residence, so it was only natural that a lot of treasures were stored here. I'll transmit the information inside to your Sea of Consciousness, and you'll know what treasures are stored in this place. Corinne immediately transmitted a message to Xiaoping's Sea of Consciousness. Whoosh! In an instant, many images appeared in Xiaoping's Sea of Consciousness, and the situation inside the invisible palace's treasure vault was completely displayed in front of him. Oh my god, sound stone. There are so many sound stone in this place. First, he noticed a large number of sound stones stored in a warehouse. There were so many of them that they could not be measured in kilograms but in tons. There were at least 1,000 tons stored in a warehouse alone. Such a number would be terrifying if it was made known to others. He remembered that when he tried to exchange for some sound stone in the Holy Land of Taichu, he had to spend a lot of points and put in a lot of effort just to obtain a few sound stone. But now, there were more than 1,000 tons stored in this warehouse alone. He did not know how long it would take to use them all. He felt that he could use these sound stones to upgrade his Bell of Chaos to a peerless sacred artifact. He would not need to look for more sound stones after that. No, it's not just sound stone. There are also many other precious ores, such as purple gold meteoric iron, duck flame stone, purple third iron, Tai gold, mysterious ice soul, ninth heaven cold steel, and so on. Xiaoping's eyes widened. No wonder Corinne said that he had made a fortune. Every single ore here was a cosmic treasure. Even a kilogram was priceless and couldn't be bought outside. These ores were basically all rare materials for forging peerless saint artifacts. If news of this were to spread, it would be enough to drive every saint crazy. Even invincible saints would try to snatch them. Not only are there precious ores here, there are also many top-notch sacred herbs planted here. The Green Ox also received the information transmitted by Corinne. He paid special attention to those top-notch sacred medicines. After seeing a sacred medicine, he couldn't help but shiver. This is 7 Orifices exquisite flower, my mother. This is a peerless sacred medicine between heaven and earth. After taking it, even a waste can obtain 7 Orifices exquisite body, becoming one of the few powerful physiques between heaven and earth, becoming a top genius in the universe. With this 7 Orifices exquisite body, you'll be able to pick up anything you want to learn in a short while, and you'll be able to deduce many things from one instance. You can be said to have an innate Tao body, and you'll be able to comprehend the laws of the universe, several times faster than other life forms. What is this? Xiaoping pointed at a black fruit that was the size of a fist and had spiral patterns on its surface. It gave off an ominous aura, and if one looked at it for too long, they would feel as if their souls would be devoured. It was unfathomably deep. He felt that this fruit was not simple, but he could not recognize it. What is it? Oh my God! This is the misfortune divine fruit, one of the peerless divine medicines. It is said that it can only be produced in the forbidden dark areas. I'm afraid it is even more precious than the enlightenment flower. The green ox's heart was already twitching nonstop. He said while trembling, "It's said that after consuming this fruit, there's a chance to successfully cultivate the misfortune battle physique. Once you succeed, you'll be able to naturally control the power of misfortune. Anyone who approaches you and is full of malice and hostility toward you will encounter different degrees of misfortune and misfortune. They will encounter all kinds of accidents, leading to serious injuries and death. Moreover, the more serious the malice, the heavier the misfortune. If it's serious, this misfortune will also involve the descendants within 3 generations. Everyone will encounter different degrees of misfortune, and sometimes even the extinction of 3 generations is possible. It's simply a lone star walking in the universe. You don't even need to do anything. Those who harbor malice will automatically die." It indicated that such a sage had once appeared in the universe. He was known as the Misfortune Sage. He had consumed the misfortune divine fruit. Wherever he went, all the races in the universe would avoid him. He could be called a human-shaped disaster. Not bad, not bad. Xiaoping touched his chin. Although this misfortune divine fruit didn't have much effect on him, if he gave birth to a descendant, he could let him consume it. At that time, perhaps a disaster would appear in the universe. Oh, what's that? He also saw a strange black flower that seemed to contain an unfathomable power of darkness. Skeletons seemed to appear on every petal. Vaguely, it also contained the power of the laws of darkness. "Master, this is the origin demon flower." The green ox was already numb from the shock. "This is also a peerless sacred herb. It's priceless, a cosmic flower that only appears once every 10 million epochs. If someone consumes this origin demon flower, they'll be able to quickly cultivate the origin demon body. This is one of the most powerful constitutions in the universe. It's innately compatible with the power of the demonic path and the power of darkness. The more they fight, the stronger they become. They're known as the ancestors of the demonic path." He didn't even know what he should say. Although he knew that there were countless treasures in the core cave abode, and that it was the life savings of an invincible sage, he didn't expect it to be this exaggerated. Any random sage herb he took out was the kind that could shock the universe. Just how many treasures did the invisible dragon Theodore loot? Back then, the invisible dragon had probably relied on its innate ability and the peerless sacred artifact, the formless palace, to enter into countless precious and strange places and steal from the treasuries of countless sages to accumulate so many treasures. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the invisible dragon was one of the richest sages in the universe. The wealth of its previous master, the Mountain River Sage, was nothing compared to Theodore's. Chapter 2476. Xiaoping, Corinne, and the Green Ox were all very excited after going through the treasures in the invisible palace. Although the invisible dragon Theodore had used many sacred medicines and elixirs to heal his injuries, he still left behind many treasures in the invisible palace. Any one of them could cause great waves in the outside world, and even start a war. What's this? Finally, Xiaoping discovered a transparent pearl the size of a basketball on the ground near the dragon throne. The pearl exuded a rich spatial aura, and with a boom, he sensed that the pearl was all-encompassing, as if it contained the entire world and the complete laws of the universe. He sensed that the interior of the pearl was boundless and larger than the space of the pearl of mountains and rivers. It also contained an extremely rich dragon origin aura that was unfathomably deep. A dragon core. Thinking of this, Xiaoping's eyes lit up. He immediately remembered what this bead was. It must be the dragon core left behind by the dragon sages after they died. He had killed some giant dragons in the past, and they had also left behind dragon cores after they died. However, the world tree had directly devoured them and refined them into fruits before turning them into ashes. The energy contained in the transparent pearl was many times more powerful than any dragon core he had seen before, and the gap between the two couldn't be measured by distance. He was certain that the transparent bead was the dragon core left behind by the invisible dragon Theodore after his death. Although the invisible dragon Theodore had turned into a phantom dragon, it was only a transformation of his soul. His physical body was completely dead, rotting and disintegrating, leaving behind only a dragon core. What a treasure! Xiaoping clenched his fists. This was a dragon core left behind by a holy dragon that had reached the invincible realm. Although the invisible dragon Theodore was a fake, it was still a life form that had once reached the invincible realm. Such a life form had surpassed everything and stood at the pinnacle of the universe. The dragon core left behind by such a life form's life essence was unimaginable in terms of value. Damn it, that shameless thief. The invisible dragon Theodore regretted his actions so much that his intestines turned green. Why did he have to participate in a trial for no reason? He should have killed these dragons as soon as he entered and put an end to all troubles. Now, this shameless bastard had entered his palace and plundered all the treasures that belonged to him, even taking away the dragon core he had left behind after his death. It felt as if it had become a pauper, penniless and miserable. Now, it could slightly understand the feelings of those sages whose treasures had been stolen by it in the past. This kind of feeling was simply fucked up and could not be described with words. Could it be that this was retribution? He had done so many bad things that the heavens sent this bastard to take away the treasures that he had painstakingly accumulated over the years. Master, I've struck gold. I've struck gold. I can sense that this dragon core is extremely beneficial to me. If I completely devour and fuse with it, I'll obtain the complete laws of the universe within this dragon core, and the orb of mountains and rivers will immediately undergo a world-shaking transformation. The Black Ox was so excited that he was incoherent. Originally, the difficulty of upgrading the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers to a peerless saint artifact was no less than that of upgrading from a primeval saint to an invincible saint. In fact, it might even be more difficult. He felt that even if he wanted to upgrade it, it would take him many years to do so. In fact, it might not even be possible in his lifetime. However, things were different now. The dragon core left behind by the invisible dragon Theodore contained the complete laws of the universe, as well as rich origin energy. Furthermore, it was of the spatial attribute. It could be said that this dragon core and the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers were extremely compatible. They were practically a match made in heaven. To be honest, the Black Ox felt that this was an eternally fortuitous encounter. After all, invincible dragons were extremely rare in the first place. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns in the entire universe. Furthermore, the other party was a supreme ruler who had comprehended the laws of space, and he had coincidentally left behind such a precious dragon core. If this wasn't an eternally fortuitous encounter, then what was? There was no way he could obtain such a supreme treasure anywhere else. Something like that happened. In that case, this dragon core belongs to you. Xiaoping's heart skipped a beat. He didn't think that the dragon core would be so useful to the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. It could actually upgrade the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers to a peerless saint artifact. However, if the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers could be upgraded to a peerless saint artifact, the benefits it would bring him would naturally be endless. After all, the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers could be considered his home now. As such, the more powerful his home was, the better. Thank you, Master. However, I'm afraid I'll need your help later to completely refine this dragon core and fuse it into the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. The Black Ox couldn't wait any longer. He immediately grabbed the dragon core and placed it into the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers. He then formed a seal with both hands and devoured the dragon core. That's naturally not a problem. Xiaoping nodded. He immediately immersed his mind into the space of the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers and reached the realm of being one with the artifact. It was as if the Pearl of Mountains and Rivers had become a part of his body. He could sense every corner of the pearl of mountains and rivers, as well as every restriction and formation. He formed a seal with both hands and circulated the tremendous power in his body. The 9 purple palace spaces trembled as they immediately poured into the depths of the pearl of mountains and rivers. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the pearl of mountains and rivers that had received Xia Ping's help was immediately injected with adrenaline. A vast world of flames immediately surged out from the depths of the pearl of mountains and rivers. It seemed to have transformed into a dimension of fire, as the hellfire golden crow burned fiercely. The dragon core that came from the invisible dragon Theodore was currently being burned by the hellfire golden crow. Normally, a dragon core like this would be very difficult to destroy. It was as sturdy as a peerless saint artifact. However, under the scorching heat of the hellfire golden crow, the dragon core still melted at a speed visible to the naked eye, and was converted into a vast amount of origin energy. The surroundings were also exuding a rich dragon origin aura. Every drop of liquid seemed to not only contain rich origin energy, but also a universal law. There was nothing in this universe that the hellfire golden crow couldn't melt. There was no way the black ox would let this opportunity slip by. He rushed up excitedly and bit down on the dragon core, devouring all of the dragon core's origin energy. Immediately, the black ox felt that its body had undergone a tremendous change. Vast amounts of universal law information surged into its sea of consciousness, as if it was communicating with the universe's origin. At this moment, it seemed to have obtained all of the invisible dragon Theodore's comprehension of the laws. It seemed to have received all of the invisible dragon Theodore's inheritance and enlightenment. The pearl of mountains and rivers also underwent a complete transformation. Chapter 2477. First, it was the laws of the universe inside the pearl of mountains and rivers. After obtaining all the information of the laws of the universe from the invisible dragon Theodore's dragon core, the laws of the world inside the pearl of mountains and rivers were immediately perfected. Countless laws of the universe filled in and perfected the laws of the universe. This was also the first step for a superior grade saint artifact to become a supreme grade saint artifact. Universe laws emerged from within the bead of mountains and rivers. There were a total of 3,000 universe laws. Each universe law was like a giant dragon. The 3,000 dragons wrapped around the entire bead of mountains and rivers like chains of order. They intertwined with each other and formed a part of the bead of mountains and rivers. Immediately, the pearl of mountains and rivers underwent a huge transformation. Originally, it was just a broken world, but now it was different. It immediately transformed into a complete world, endlessly growing and devouring the energy of the origin of the universe, forming a complete cycle. And this transformation was just the beginning. After making up for all the laws of the universe in the pearl of mountains and rivers, the huge amount of dragon origin energy inside the dragon core was also released. This was the energy essence of a saint who had once reached the invincible realm. Even though a lot of this energy essence had been lost because of the great battle, the energy inside the dragon core was still quite frightening. The energy of dozens of sectors might not be comparable to it. After all, the birth of every invincible realm saint was a miracle of the universe. There was a limited number of them, and it was unknown how many resources were needed to advance. Rumble in an instant, because the dragon core had melted, it turned into drops of dragon origin energy. It was like raindrops sprinkling in every corner of the pearl of mountains and rivers. Suddenly, the entire space of the pearl of mountains and rivers was rained, and it went on for 7 days and 7 nights. The raindrops covered almost every inch of soil and permeated every corner of the space. All the creatures living in the pearl of mountains and rivers received great benefits. After obtaining this huge amount of origin energy, the space inside the pearl of mountains and rivers was also expanding, and expanding, until it was more than 10,000 times larger than before. At this moment, the mountains grew taller. Towering mountains could be seen everywhere, reaching into the clouds, with no end in sight. The rivers became wider, and they were like giant dragons, lying across the earth, crisscrossing and running through the past and present. The valleys were deep, the seas were surging, and the deserts were dark. Even every plant in this world was becoming larger, as if they were adapting to the ever-expanding world of the pearl of mountains and rivers. This drastic change was simply unprecedented. It was as if the evolution of hundreds of billions of years of life had happened in a short 7 days and 7 nights, and all the creatures in the pearl of mountains and rivers received different degrees of benefits. I've advanced. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaoping's body trembled. He felt the beat of mountains and rivers in his hand immediately change. All of its power had reached its peak. Boom! At that moment, the pearl that was initially the size of a fist suddenly turned into the size of a book. It was also only the size of a palm, but it emanated an unfathomable aura. It could be said that it had become completely different now. Its strength had increased by who knew how many times. It was simply a geometric increase. This book had a total of 33 pages, representing the 33 heavens. It was as if every page of the book was a great thousand world. Each great thousand world was incomparably huge, rich in species and resources, and the density of the heaven and earth spiritual qi was also more than 1,000 times higher than before. It seemed to be able to communicate with the origin of the universe at all times, devouring the energy of the origin to strengthen the internal space of this book, causing the living beings in the space world to grow stronger every moment. Wonderful, wonderful, truly wonderful. Xiaoping's heart trembled. He could feel that the book in his hand was many times stronger than the beat of mountains and rivers from before. A casual smashing of it could cause a page to fly out, and it could crush a great thousand world. This was like a collision between worlds, producing intense destructive power. Moreover, the internal space of this book was also extremely sturdy, the kind that was indestructible. If it were before, perhaps the primordial sages would be able to completely tear the world of the beat of mountains and rivers apart if they entered. All the space would be destroyed, and it would be impossible to resist. However, it was different now. The internal world of this book was terrifyingly sturdy. Even if an invincible sage were to enter, he would not be able to destroy it in a short period of time. As for other sages, there was no need to mention. Once they entered, they would be trapped until they died. It was like an unbreakable prison. Master! At that moment, the green bull also went through an earth-shattering change. Although it was still a bull, its body had condensed into a substance, as if it had a body of flesh and blood. However, this was not a true body of flesh and blood. In the eyes of Xiaoping's golden crow of hell's eyes, this body was condensed from the power of 3,000 laws. Every meridian, every blood vessel, every bone, and every inch of flesh and blood was condensed from the power of laws. This was a body of laws. It could be said that the weapon spirit green bull was no different from any other ordinary living being. Even if it were to leave the body of a supreme grade saint weapon, it could still survive independently. In fact, it even possessed a formidable battle prowess. Master, now that the beat of mountains and rivers has leveled up, it has completely leveled up to the level of a supreme grade saint weapon. I'm afraid that the name beat of mountains and rivers is no longer suitable for it. Master, please change its name. The green bull felt that it was time for it to bid farewell to the past. Leveling up to a supreme grade saint weapon was a new beginning, the birth of a new era, and the start of a new legend. Change its name? That's right. Right now it's no longer a bead but a book. It's no longer suitable for it to continue being called the bead of mountains and rivers. Since that's the case, I'll call it the classic of mountains and seas. Xiaoping rubbed his chin and changed the name of this treasure to the classic of mountains and seas. Thank you for the name, master. Hearing that, the green bull gently swiped across the surface of the book. Immediately, the 3 golden words classic of mountains and seas appeared on the surface of the book. It was like the words of gold and jade, forming the power of laws. It was as if the 3 words had been engraved into the depths of the treasure and could no longer be changed. Not bad. Xiaoping immediately felt very satisfied. He felt that the treasure he had was not much different from the real classic of mountains and seas. First of all, there was a huge spatial world inside. There were also countless species living in it, as well as a large number of precious plants. It was a complete world. The only downside was that the species in the world of the classic of mountains and seas were not rich enough. Compared to the real world, there was still a huge gap. Looks like I'll have to capture some rare species in the future and put them in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. That way, the classic of mountains and seas will truly become a primordial world. Xiaoping rubbed his chin. He felt that this was very feasible. Right now, he had already captured many dragons and put them in. If he captured some other species, such as phoenixes, kirans, tautais, black tortoises, vermilion birds, and other divine beasts, there were also many primordial species. They would definitely make the species in the classic of mountains and seas more rich and colorful. And that way, he might be able to strengthen the power of the classic of mountains and seas. Chapter 2478. Meanwhile, in a primordial forest in the dragon world, Yi Mengyao, the dragon whelps, and Xiaoping's clone had been hiding in this place for some time. However, their lives were very comfortable. They did not have to worry about food and drink, and they could often log on to the virtual network to gather information. It was not a life of escape. Come on, it's time for us to go to the relic of the invisible dragon. At this time, the infernal golden crow clone opened its eyes. It sensed the message transmitted by Xiaoping's main body. Xiaoping had already taken complete control of all the restrictions and arrays in the ruins of the invisible dragon, and could transmit everyone into the ruins. Although this primeval forest seemed to be sparsely populated, who knew how many holy dragons were proficient in tracking techniques in the dragon realm? If the other party really cared, Yi Mengyao and the others would definitely be tracked. Therefore, it was better for Yi Mengyao and the others to return to his side. Invisible Dragon's relic? Could it be that you've already taken control of the ruins? Hearing this, Yi Mengyao couldn't help but be shocked. How long had it been? Moreover, it was a relic left behind by an invincible realm saint, which contained many powerful restrictive formations. Even the dragons in the invincible realm didn't dare to go too deep in case they got hurt. But now, Xiaoping had actually completely grasped it. It was truly unimaginable. Yes, the main body has completely grasped it. As long as we get close to the ruins of the invisible dragon, we can teleport you to the core area. We won't have to worry about being hunted down by other dragons. The golden crow of hell clone said in a deep voice. All right. Yi Mengyao nodded. Not to mention that she was a human, her true identity could not be exposed. Even if she was a giant dragon, facing the covetous eyes of so many holy dragons, she was also in danger. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Without another word, the infernal golden crow clone immediately teleported away with Yi Mengyao and the others. To the clone, which had already reached the ancient realm and possessed 80% of the main body's strength, teleportation was a small matter. Moreover, the strength of this clone far surpassed most of the near-ancient sages, and it could even contend against the middle ancient sages. It could teleport 800 light years in a second. Therefore, there were not many sages who could catch up to the golden crow of hell. It was also because of this speed that some of the evil divine dragons that tried to capture Yi Mengyao and the others were easily dodged by the infernal golden crow clone. It was impossible to catch up to them. Half a day later, under the guidance of the Hell Golden Crow avatar, Yi Mengyao and the others finally approached the ruins of the invisible dragon. Buzz, as soon as they got close, the space around them suddenly fluctuated. It was like a black hole, swallowing Yi Mengyao and the others. In the next second, Yi Mengyao and the others entered the core immortal cave of the invisible dragon ruins. Betty, Kalita, Memory Dragon Mabel, Gluttonous Dragon Austin, Cloud Dream Dragon Tadish, and the other young dragons cried out in excitement when they saw Fate Dragon Betty and Formless Dragon Kalita. Since Xiaoping entered the ruins of the invisible dragon, they had not seen each other for a long time. Haha, did you see that? Did you see how amazing your big sister is? This place is the lair of the invisible dragon Theodore. We've completely occupied it and made it our territory. Betty, the dragon of fate, was very pleased with herself. By then, Xiaoping had already woken up the unconscious destiny dragon Betty and formless dragon Kalita, indicating that he had completely occupied Theodore's territory.
Wow, this is amazing. This palace is really luxurious. My God, what kind of treasure is this? So many jewels, mine, all mine. We're rich, we're really rich this time. The young dragons were very excited, and they all cried out when they saw the peerless sacred artifact, the formless palace. Some of the young dragons saw the jewels engraved on the formless palace and pounced on it, trying to chew the jewels off. Unfortunately, after chewing for a long time, they couldn't even chew a single gem off. Their eyes seemed to have turned into the shape of jewels, and their instincts as giant dragons kept surging. My God, ghosts, there's ghosts here. Suddenly, Wales the slow dragon couldn't help but scream in fear. He immediately noticed the formless dragon Theodore, who was bound by the soul-binding chains. He trembled in fear because the formless dragon Theodore's appearance was too terrifying and eerie. The other young dragons, and Yi Mengyao, also saw the formless dragon Theodore. What's there to be afraid of? As the saying goes, dragons don't have guts. This is the formless dragon Theodore. Fate Dragon Betty slapped Wales on the head, exasperated that he didn't live up to her expectations. However, she was also scared out of her wits when she first saw the formless dragon Theodore. It took her a long time to get used to it after Xia Ping's explanation. After all, children were still quite afraid of ghosts, and the young dragons were no exception. Big sister, this is the formless dragon Theodore. It's a ghost, and it's been dead for God knows how long. Not only did the slow dragon Wales not feel relieved, but he was even more afraid. Everyone knew that the formless dragon Theodore had died a long time ago. Now that it had appeared here, if it wasn't a ghost, what else could it be? When the other dragon whelps saw this, they retreated in fear. Hee, a bunch of brats. The invisible dragon Theodore looked at the group of dragon whelps with disdain. He was extremely arrogant. What's there to be afraid of? This Theodore didn't die, but turned into a specter dragon when he died. In fact, he's become a special dragon just like us. The dragon of fate, Betty explained. I see. The young dragons were instantly relieved. So it was a special dragon. That made sense. But why is he tied up? Why is he chained up? Time Dragon Caesar asked curiously. It's simple. The formless dragon Theodore is a big baddie who wants to wreak havoc everywhere. So the adult dragons tied him up and imprisoned him. Formless dragon Kalita said. The adult dragons are so powerful. I heard that the formless dragon Theodore is an invincible dragon. He was the grand elder of the dragon god shrine in ancient times. And now he's been captured by an adult dragon. The young dragons looked at Xia Ping with admiration. That's nothing. After the formless dragon Theodore died, he became a specter dragon. What a waste. Even I could capture him. Fate Dragon Betty crossed her arms and looked at the formless dragon Theodore with disdain. A bunch of brats. What are you talking about? How dare you talk about the great formless dragon Theodore like that? When I was still alive, I was awe-inspiring. Your ancestors hadn't even appeared yet, and yet you dare speak to me like that? The formless dragon Theodore was furious. It was one thing to be defeated by Xia Ping, but Xia Ping was a near-ancient saint after all. It was only natural that he couldn't beat him. But these brats dared to look down on him. Damn it.
Chapter 2479. Wow, that's so cool. The spectral dragon can really talk. That's incredible. Do dragons turn into this after they die? This is the first time I've seen it. I wonder how the spectral dragon feels to the touch. What's the difference between it and us living dragons? Let's go and touch it. It's too unbelievable. I'm afraid the other dragons will be scared to death if word of this gets out. Betty and the other young dragons weren't afraid at all. Instead, their eyes lit up as they looked at the spectral dragon, as if they were looking at a rare animal. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They moved quickly and climbed onto Theodore's enormous body. Some of the young dragons grabbed onto Theodore's beard and climbed up along it, swinging on it. Some of the young dragons rode on its head, jumping and cheering everywhere. Some of the young dragons lay on the tip of its tail and slid down, using its tail as a slide. Some of the young dragons touched and pinched everywhere, as if trying to figure out how the spectral dragon was different from other dragons. Some even tried to pluck out the scales on Theodore's body, but they were too hard and couldn't be pulled out. Why, you brats, get out of my sight. The invisible dragon Theodore was furious. No matter what, he was a dragon that had once reached the invincible realm, a being that stood at the pinnacle of the universe. A single word from him could cause the death of countless lives in the star field. He held great power. But now, it was being treated as a toy by these young dragons. But even crawling
so,
all over its the body, formless dragon what did Theodore they think had it was? Still fallen into
playground.
Xia Ping's hands.
They even wanted
and become
to feel
his
what
prisoner.
it felt like to touch
One could
it.
imagine how
Bullshit.
inconceivable
How
Xia
could the
Ping's
great
abilities
Theodore be
were that
touched
even
by
the
other
formless
dragons
dragon Theodore
just because
couldn't
they
do
wanted
anything
to
him? But now,
Xia Ping,
its body
what are
was
you going to do
completely
next?
bound by the
Now
soul-locking
that you've
chains
obtained
like a
the
prisoner.
invisible dragon
Even
Theodore's
its power
relic,
had been sealed
I'm
by
afraid
Xia
you've
Ping's
become a
6,000
public
seals.
enemy.
And
It'll
it
be
couldn't
hard
use
for
any
you
of
to
its power
continue
at
living
all.
in the dragon
It was
realm.
helpless in the face
Yi
of
Mingyao
these
transmitted
transmitted
her
young
voice
dragons
through divine sense.
This was truly a
Don't
case
worry
of a
about
fallen
that.
tiger being
This
bullied
relic
by
was
dogs.
painstakingly
The
built
grievance
by
in
the
its
formless
heart couldn't
dragon
be
Theodore.
described with words.
I don't know how many
This is the
resources
invisible
were spent on
dragon
it.
Theodore.
Even if
who
an
once reached
invincible
the
realm
invincible
giant
realm,
dragon wanted to come
seeing
in,
this scene,
it wouldn't be
Yi
easy.
Mingyao was
It
speechless,
can be said that
and
this
the corner
place
of her
is the
mouth
safest
twitched.
lair.
If the
Even if
giant
the other
dragons
giant
of the dragon
dragons
god
knew that were
shrine
humans,
saw this
they
invincible
wouldn't be
dragon
able to do anything
who
to
used to be
us.
majestic
Xia
and
Ping
stood on the
smiled.
top of the universe.
After taking
In
control
this
of the
state,
invisible
they
palace,
would be so shocked
it
that
was
their jaws
equivalent
would
to
drop.
taking control
However,
of the restriction
she was also very
formation
surprised
of the entire
just
relic
what kind
cave
of
abode.
method did
He
Xia
also
Ping
knew
use
this
to
place
capture
like
the
the back of
invisible
his
dragon?
hand,
And
because
was
she knew
extremely
that even
familiar
though the
with it.
invisible dragon
Therefore,
Theodore
he
was
had a clear
extremely
understanding
weak
of
due to
how
the
powerful
accident,
the defensive
as a giant
restriction
dragon of
formation
the
of the
invincible
cave abode
realm
was.
It must
It
have
could
a lot
only
of
be
tricks
said that the
ordinary
formless
people
dragon
couldn't
Theodore
imagine.
was
If
indeed
that
the
wasn't
most
the
fearful
case,
of the invincible
Theodore
dragons.
the shapeless dragon
It
would
had
not
gone
have
to great
deliberately
lengths
leaked
to
the
build
ruins
its lair
and lured
and
so many
consumed a
holy
huge
dragons
amount of
into it.
resources in the universe. In order to prevent the invincible realm giant dragons from entering its relic and wreaking havoc, it had also set up many powerful space restriction formations that contained the powerful power of the laws of space. If the invincible realm dragons tried to forcibly destroy the relic cave abode, they would immediately trigger the space restriction formations and instantly teleport the invincible dragons into the dark forbidden zone. As for the giant dragons below the primordial dragon realm, they would not be able to cause any trouble in the relic cave abode. Of course, they could also slowly break the restriction formations of the cave abode. However, it would take a lot of time, and at least 100 million years to do so. Therefore, it was safe for him to stay in the cave abode during this period of time. I see. Yi Mingyao finally understood why Xia Ping was so confident. It was indeed the safest place to stay in the relic cave abode. Moreover, we can also use the relic cave abode to capture the giant dragons who came here to train. We can also guarantee that nothing will happen to the dragon god shrine. Xia Ping smiled. The trial in the core of the cave abode was originally set up by the formless dragon Theodore to choose a giant dragon that was suitable for his physical body. It could be said that this place was a place with a slim chance of survival. Once they entered, the fate of the giant dragons would be sealed. The other dragons were also aware of this. He could use this situation to enter the space maze and seal the dying giant dragons one by one, imprisoning them all in his classic of mountains and seas. Therefore, even if the dragon god shrine knew that many giant dragons had disappeared after entering the space maze, They would only think that they had died in Theodore's trial instead of being captured by Xiaoping. This way, he could silently capture a large number of giant dragon slaves. After all, the area of the classic of mountains and seas had become even larger. It had expanded into 33 layers of heaven, and the area of the land inside was unbelievably large. It was like a small universe. It could be said that the classic of mountains and seas was currently in a period of development, and it needed a lot of labor. Without a doubt, these giant dragons were the best labor. They were strong, had great endurance, had long lifespans, and didn't need much rest. They were the best targets to exploit. Hearing this, Yi Mengyao was speechless, not knowing how to respond. If the elders of the Dragon God Shrine knew about this, they would probably go crazy with anger. Capturing so many giant dragons in the dragon world, just to make them do hard labor was a waste of resources. This kind of hard labor was so extravagant that it made people's hair stand on end. She didn't know how to describe it, and she had never even thought about it. Poverty really limited her imagination. Chapter 2480. Alright, you little fellows, stop causing trouble here. Enter the classic of mountains and seas for me. Xiaoping was speechless when he saw Fortune Dragon Betty and the other young dragons still excitedly playing with Invisible Dragon Theodore. He made a grabbing motion and immediately threw the young dragons and Invisible Dragon Theodore into the world of the classic of mountains and seas. At this moment, there were a total of 33 worlds in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. The last world was where Xiaoping and the others usually lived. The maids, the black hole worm, the tree men, and the others would all live in this world. As for the other 32 worlds, the green bull had divided them into places for planting spiritual grains and herbs. The laborers who had been captured would live in these worlds. Of course, without permission, they couldn't leave this world. Only those who had obtained permission had the right to enter and exit the 33 worlds at will. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, Fortune Dragon Betty and the other young dragons felt their figures flicker and appear in another world, while Invisible Dragon Theodore was temporarily imprisoned. Wow, what is this place? It doesn't seem like the Dragon Realm, but it does seem a little similar. Memory Dragon Mabel looked around curiously. She found that she seemed to have left the ruins of the Invisible Dragon and arrived in an unfamiliar place. She sensed that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around her was incomparably rich, and it also contained an enormous amount of dragon origin energy. Although it could not compare to the origin energy deep in the core of the dragon realm, compared to some remote places, it was still an excellent place for cultivation. In reality, the classic of mountains and seas had fused with the dragon core of the invisible dragon and possessed the dragon origin energy of an invincible realm dragon. This kind of energy was scattered to every corner of the classic of mountains and seas, turning this place into a place similar to the little dragon realm. Even if dragons entered this world, they would not feel the slightest discomfort. Instead, they would think that it was similar to the dragon realm. Moreover, the dragon core of an invincible realm dragon had already formed a complete world, endlessly growing and turning into a perfect cycle. It could devour the origin energy of the universe and transform it into dragon origin energy. Therefore, the origin energy that was constantly scattered around the classic of mountains and seas would not become less and less. On the contrary, as the classic of mountains and seas grew stronger, the dragon origin energy of this world would also become denser, and it might even become a holy land for cultivation like the dragon realm. Caw. This place is a private world owned by adult dragons. It's a place completely different from the dragon world. Betty, the dragon of destiny, looked like she knew everything. Those giant dragons that were captured were imprisoned here, unable to leave for the rest of their lives. It can't be. Could it be that we're too naughty, so the adult dragons want to imprison us in this world? Hearing this, the gluttonous dragon Austin almost cried in fear. What an idiot! Fate Dragon Betty said disdainfully. Of course not. How are we naughty? The adult dragons must have been worried that we would be bored, so they put us in this world to play. I heard that in this world, There are many races that adult dragons have captured from other worlds. There are even humans. She had a serious look on her face. Human? It can't be, right? Are you talking about the legendary super demons that eat anything, and even us giant dragons? Hearing this, even the drowsy Constance woke up with a start. She could not help but widen her eyes as she looked at Betty in disbelief. In the dragon realm, some adult dragons demonize humans to scare the young dragons not to be naughty. They said that if they were naughty, they would be captured and eaten alive by humans. Humans were like demons in the eyes of the children in the dragon realm. But there were also young dragons who scoffed, thinking that it was just a story to scare the children, because they had never seen what a real human looked like. That's right, it's the legendary humans. Fate Dragon Betty nodded seriously. Anyway, we have to be careful in this world. Don't get caught by humans, or we will be roasted and eaten. Yeah, don't worry, big sis. We will never be caught by humans. Sleeping Dragon Constance and the rest of the young dragons nodded with a cautious look. And other than humans, there are creatures that are completely different from the giant dragons in this world. Everyone must be careful. Fate Dragon Betty had never been to the world of the classic of mountains and seas, but she had heard some information from Xia Ping, so she remembered it. Kaboom! But just as she finished speaking, there was a loud rumble from afar. It was like an earthquake, and everything was shaking. Then treants that were tens of meters tall and hundreds of meters tall walked past them. At that moment, all the young dragons were stunned. Big sis, the trees here can walk on their own. Time Dragon Caesar's eyes widened in shock. In the dragon realm, all the trees were stationary, and they would never walk like living beings. But what was happening now? There were so many trees, and they even had noses, eyes, and mouths. They were walking on the ground in unison like draconians. For a moment they were dumbfounded. Run! Fate Dragon Betty screamed. While the power of fate did not warn her, the trees were too scary, and they did not look like normal trees. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As soon as she finished, the young dragons fled in fear, not daring to stay where they were. They ran out of the forest at an unbelievable speed. What's going on? Such a commotion also alerted a treant elder, who was moving forward. Reporting to Elder, it seems like a group of young dragons invited by Lord God has accidentally entered the forest. A treant also noticed the presence of Fate Dragon Betty and the other young dragons. I see. Then there's no need to care about it. Now that this world has benefited from Lord God's power, it seems to have become more vast and boundless. According to Lord God's orders, we must plant a large number of trees, flowers, and other plants in this world to increase the vitality of this world. The treant elder cackled. Hee hee, how exciting. Looking at the trees growing strong and the whole world covered in green, it really makes one happy. This world is so beautiful. Praise Lord God. We are all very energetic when we work. Oh, stop talking nonsense. Let's get to work. I can't wait to see the forests rise from the ground. Trees, let's plant this world full of trees. The treants cried out excitedly and even sang. To the tree people, it was their mission to cultivate dense forests. Just like how humans wanted to expand their country's territory, no matter how many dense forests they cultivated, they would never be able to satisfy the tree people's appetite. Chapter 2481. Half an hour later. Fate Dragon Betty and the other dragon whelps sprinted all the way, as if they didn't care about their lives. They finally ran out of the forest. Phew. At this time, the Fate Dragon Betty heaved a sigh of relief. That forest is really too dangerous. Fortunately, we ran fast, or else we might have been eaten by that group of strange trees. This world is really scary. Even trees can walk, have mouths, noses, eyes, and so many hands and feet. It's scary to death. The other dragon whelps couldn't help but nod in agreement. Luckily they were smart and decisive. Otherwise, they might have been eaten by those weird trees in the forest. Wait, there are weird creatures over there too. Suddenly, slow dragon whales pointed at a plain in front of them. There was a group of weird creatures there. That's really weird. Why don't they have horns? Look, their wings are also very strange. They actually have feathers. It seems to be very weak, Wang Zhong said with a smile. Oh my god, there are some without hair. They're bald. Fate Dragon Betty and the other dragon whelps widened their eyes, looking at the scene before them in disbelief. Many maidservants appeared in front of them. They were rabbit-eared maidens, angel maidens, winged maidens, mermaid maidens, fairy maidens, angel maidens, cat-eared maidens, rabbit-eared maidens, snake maidens. How extravagant and wealthy Azura maidens
was it to be able to wear gems
and so
all
on.
over one's
Almost
body.
all the races
Even if
in
they
the
wanted
universe
to do
appeared
such a
in this
thing,
place.
they couldn't
However,
do it. Such
this
races
little lowly
didn't
was the
exist
golden
in the dragon
slime
world.
To these
are you
dragon
new here?
whelps, they
The
had
golden
never heard
slime
of them.
They hadn't
Also
even
saw
heard
the
of
group
rumors.
of dragon whelps.
All of a sudden,
in a flash,
these dragon
she
whelps
appeared
were
in
stunned.
front of the group
It was
of
an
dragon
eye-opener.
whelps and looked
Look,
at them
there seems to be a
expressionlessly.
tycoon dragon
What?
over there.
What do you want?
Gluttonous
The
dragon
of
Austin
Destiny
immediately
Betty
shouted,
and the other
pointing
dragon
at a little
whelp
lowly
said
in
weakly.
front.
As
Fate
poor
Dragon
people,
Betty
they
and the
felt
other
that they
dragon
didn't have
whelps
any
looked in the
confidence
direction
to speak
Austin
in
was
front of a
pointing.
tycoon.
They immediately
It was as if
felt
they
a
would be
glint of
despised
jewels.
as a country
It was
bumpkin
as if
at
they
any
were
time.
blinded by the
They were
light of the
instantly
jewels.
overwhelmed by
A little
Xiao Jin's
lowly
aura.
wearing a crown appeared in front
It's
of
good
them.
that you're new.
It was
Since
embedded
it's our
with
first
many
meeting,
universe jewels.
I'll give these gems
Every
to
one
you.
of them was priceless.
It's just a small token
Any
of
one
my
of them could buy
appreciation.
an entire
Please
city.
accept it. Moreover,
With a clatter,
the clothes
the
that
golden
this little
slime
lowly
Xiao
was wearing
Jin
were
waved
all
her
made
hand.
of gold,
and
they
immediately
were also
threw
very
out a pile of
luxuriously
colorful
inlaid
gems.
with a large
The
number
glint
of
of the
precious
pearls
gems
blinded the
as
eyes
if they
of
were
all the
free.
dragon whelps.
Everyone could see
Big
that this
sister,
little lowly was
the dragon
so
of
rich that it
Destiny
made
Betty
people's hair and the
stand
other
on
dragon
end.
whelps were
To be
immediately
honest,
convinced.
they had seen
With
many
a
rich
smack,
dragons in
they
the
laid
dragon
limply
realm,
on the ground,
but they had never
completely
seen
convinced.
such a tycoon dragon.
They had never seen
It
a
was as if he was
WYRM
afraid that
was
others
so
wouldn't
rich
know
that
that he was
rich,
actually willing to
so he
share
wore
her
jewelry
gems
all
with
over
other
his
dragons.
body.
Although
After
this
all,
behavior was
which
very
ordinary dragon
unsophisticated
wouldn't
in the
keep the
eyes of
gems
other
for
races
themselves and hide
in
them
the
in their
eyes
own
of the
caves.
WYRMS.
They wouldn't even
This
give a
was simply
single
a
gold
super
coin
rich
to
person,
other WYRMS.
a superstar
They were
existence
extremely
that stood at the
stingy.
top of many
However,
WYRMS.
what was up with this tycoon dragon? He was so rich that he didn't even care about the gems. It was clearly their first meeting, but he actually gave a pile of gems as a greeting gift. This was too much. Faced with such an attack of money, they couldn't resist at all, and were instantly corroded by the sugar-coated cannonball. Even the Dragon of Destiny Betty was the same. As WYRMS, they couldn't resist the charm of the gems at all. Their eyes formed the shape of gems, and they were extremely excited. Hee hee, a bunch of country bumpkins who haven't seen the world. At this moment, a voice sounded from the side. What? Hearing this, the Dragon of Destiny Betty and the other dragon whelps were filled with anger. They immediately looked towards the source of the voice, but when they saw the person who spoke, their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Because the one who spoke was actually a little lowly, but she had two huge dark circles around her eyes like a panda. She seemed to have not slept for many days, and her hair was as messy as a bird's nest. They felt that this little lowly was even poorer than them, no different from a beggar dragon. For a moment, they felt that they had become rich, and they couldn't help but straighten their backs. What kind of look is that? What kind of look is that? Why are you looking at me with such pitiful eyes? Seeing this scene, that little lowly was instantly enraged. She was extremely frustrated. She felt that as the Black Hole Worm King, she was actually being looked down upon by this group of weak dragon whelps. Her pride couldn't accept it for a moment. She looked a little decadent now, but that was because she had worked hard for 3 days and 3 nights to play the game. However, this group of despicable dragon whelps actually dared to look down on her. This was a group of shallow dragon whelps who judged people by their appearance. They had no foundation at all.
and she didn't want to be associated with them. Hee hee. The group of dragon whelps chuckled. They couldn't be bothered to talk to this kind of beggar dragon, because they were afraid that they would be pestered and ask for money. Friends, I wonder if you've heard of the greatest king competition? With a swoosh, at this moment, another loli with messy hair like a bird's nest and two huge dark circles around her eyes appeared silently in front of this group of dragon whelps. Her body emitted an inexplicable decadent and dark aura. Just like a black hole, it could pull any life into the abyss of depravity at any time. It was as if she was a dark demon king from the abyss of the end of the world. What? The dragon of destiny. Betty's heart couldn't help but tighten. She seemed to have sensed that the future of fate was dark. She seemed to have been pestered by a super big trouble, and it was the kind that she couldn't get rid of no matter what. Chapter 2482. At that moment, in the world of the classic of mountains and seas, Xiaoping was in a cave, and in front of him was a sacred medicine that he had obtained from the invisible palace, the infinite pure yang fruit. It was about the size of a fist, and its body was densely covered with law of fire patterns. From afar, it looked like a small sun that emitted eternal energy. Its surface temperature was 18,000 degrees Celsius, which was enough to melt most of the substances in the world. Its internal temperature was more than 100 times higher. It could be said that ordinary cultivators would probably not be able to get close to this sacred medicine. Just getting close to it would be like getting close to a star, and they would be burned to ashes by the eternal heat. In fact, this sacred medicine was only able to be nurtured from the depths of a star, after accumulating endless stellar energy. This sacred medicine contained an extremely large amount of pure yang energy. If an ordinary person were to consume it, they would immediately be able to cultivate a pure yang body and be born with the ability to control the law of fire. Of course, he had the golden crow of hell bloodline, so he naturally did not need to cultivate a pure yang body to cultivate a golden crow of hell body. However, this sacred medicine was extremely beneficial for him to awaken the golden crow of hell bloodline. After obtaining this sacred medicine, the bloodline in his body immediately throbbed and yearned for it, as if it was ecstatic. Therefore, after everything was done, he didn't say a word and immediately went into closed-door cultivation to consume the infinite pure yang fruit. As for capturing the giant dragons that were trapped in the maze, he could leave it to his clones. There was no need for him to do it himself, as it would be too much of a waste of time. What a great treasure! In an instant, Xiaoping ate the infinite pure yang fruit without hesitation. The fruit melted in his mouth and instantly turned into a mass of solidified molten lava. Every drop of molten lava contained the energy essence of a star, and it was incredibly dense. It flowed into his limbs, bones, and even every cell. At that moment, the 70 billion golden crow of hell cells in his body were in a trance, as if they were extremely eager to devour this pure yang energy without any impurities. To the golden crow of hell, this was the best nourishment for growth. This feels good. Xiaoping felt an unprecedented restraint. If this magma energy flowed into someone else's body, they would probably be burned to ashes immediately. There was no way they could withstand such an extremely domineering star essence. In reality, not all sacred medicines were suitable for ordinary people to consume. If an ordinary person consumed this sacred medicine, even a little bit of it would be burned to ashes in an instant. After all, this was the energy essence of a star. It emitted endless heat at every moment. Such a star's essence was now concentrated inside a fruit. One could imagine how powerful this sacred medicine was. How could it be something ordinary people could come into contact with? Even ordinary sages would find it difficult to devour these stellar essences, let alone ordinary people who could not come into contact with them. This was because the energy contained in these stellar essences was too violent. If these sages were to consume it, and were unable to refine it, it would cause the violent star essence to run amok in their bodies. It might even harm their souls. Therefore, this saint medicine was considered poison to most sages. However, to him, who possessed the bloodline of the golden crow of hell, this pure yang energy was the most precious life essence.
It was as if it was natural food and nourishment for his growth. Whoosh! When these stellar essences surged into Xiaoping's body, every golden crow of hell cell in his body was greedily devouring them, promoting the growth of his golden crow of hell bloodline. It was as if his entire body was soaking in a hot spring. It was as if at this moment, he was evolving at every moment, as if he had broken a certain limit. 100 million, 1 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion. The golden crow of hell cells, which had not been awakened for a long time, began to awaken crazily with the help of the infinite pure yang fruit. After awakening, the golden crow of hell cells integrated into the depths of Xiaoping's bloodline. His muscles, skin, meridians, blood vessels, bones, and other parts of his body were further strengthened by the awakening of the golden crow of hell cells. Even his soul was fully tempered by this sacred power, as if it had been tempered thousands of times. Every blood vessel in the depths of his body was flowing with turbulent magma energy. It was extremely hot. With Xiaoping's body as the center, circles of condensed violent heat were also emitted. It was as if hundreds of light years around him had been burned into ashes. It was extremely hot. Beams of crimson light pierced through the void, shining brightly and pervasively. It was as if these light beams could melt metal and melt iron. Fortunately, Xiaoping was in the classic of mountains and seas, a peerless sacred artifact, and benefited from the isolation of the classic of mountains and seas. Otherwise, the many mighty figures in the dragon realm would definitely notice such an abnormal state of cultivation. Moreover, if it was a high-grade sacred artifact, the classic of mountains and seas, it would probably be a little difficult to withstand such heat. However, after advancing to a peerless sacred artifact, this was child's play. 7 days and 7 nights passed in a flash. At this moment, Xiaoping finally devoured all the star essence of the infinite pure yang fruit, taking it for himself. At this moment, the number of golden crow of hell cells in his body had also awakened to 100 billion. It was as if the bloodline in his body had reached a critical point, and all the power of his bloodline was undergoing a metamorphosis at this moment. It was as if an earth-shattering change had taken place. In particular, every single bone in his body had been corroded by the golden crow of hell's blood and tempered into a dark gold color. Dense nomological patterns also appeared on the surface of the dark gold bones. It was as if these bones had turned into godly bones, containing hints of imperishable characteristics. They were extremely tough and indestructible. Even if Xiaoping were to die right now, these bones would probably remain in his body. Even if countless epochs pass by, these godly bones would not turn to dust and would exist eternally. If these bones were to be refined into magic treasures, they would definitely be top-notch magic treasures that could become peerless sacred artifacts. They might even contain powerful laws of hell and fire. Thanks to the support of these dark gold godly bones, the power in his body skyrocketed even further. It was as if the genes in his body had undergone a further metamorphosis at this moment. At the same time, Xiaoping's soul force had also undergone a tremendous evolution. If it were before, the range of his divine sense would only be 700 light years. However, it had now expanded to a range of 1,000 light years, which was an increase of 30% to 40%. With such a powerful divine sense, even the ancient sages were probably only at this level. However, to Xiaoping, this was merely a side effect. The most important thing was that after awakening 100 billion golden crow of hell cells, he had finally awakened a new bloodline ability. Chapter 2483. This bloodline mystic power? Xiaoping's pupils constricted as he sensed the information coming from the depths of his bloodline. He could feel that this newly awakened bloodline mystic power was so powerful that it made his hair stand on end. Bloodline mystic power, soul shriek. Ability 1. Let out a shriek from the main body. As long as a living being's soul isn't strong enough within the range of the divine sense, their soul will be pulled out of their body and extracted out of thin air. It's almost impossible to defend against. Ability 2. Devour the soul that has left the body and use the soul energy as one's own to increase one's strength. Without a doubt, This was a powerful soul attack type mystic power. Furthermore, it was a plundering area of effects soul mystic power. Living beings who weren't strong enough would die if they faced this bloodline mystic power. In fact, after the golden crow of hell's soul fell into hell, it could become the ruler of hell and suppress all the demon gods in the world because of this bloodline mystic power. As long as it let out a soul shriek, those powerful demon gods with immortal bodies, who were said to be unkillable, would basically have their souls extracted and killed. One could imagine that those demon gods who relied on their immortal bodies would be in a constant state of fear. They no longer had the confidence to be unkillable. This ability made countless demon gods in hell tremble in fear. With this bloodline mystic power, the golden crow of hell swept through everything and devoured the souls of countless demon gods. It kept growing stronger, and finally became the true ruler of hell. This ability is too powerful. Xiaoping's pupils shrank. Now that he had awakened 100 billion golden crow hell cells, he finally felt the power of the infernal demon lord's bloodline in his body. It was so powerful that it was unreasonable, and went against the laws of the universe. It was no wonder that the universe's origin feared it, and kept sending down divine punishment to prevent this mythical creature from reviving. He had also cultivated Zhuangzhou's dream of butterfly, and the true solution of illusion, but compared to the bloodline mystic power, soul shriek, he was still far from it. This was a forceful and irresistible bloodline mystic power. If he couldn't block it, he would die. It was a terrifying hell mystic power that was created purely for killing and destroying the world. The golden crow of hell probably wasn't some kind person back in hell. It was purely an extremely evil demon god of hell. That was why it could rule over everything and stand at the peak of all demon gods. A single shriek was enough to destroy all the races in the world, kill billions of demons, and devour countless souls. Oh no, the heavenly tribulation is about to descend. Suddenly, Xiaoping sensed that a terrifying lightning tribulation was born in the depths of the void. It was as if a huge tribulation aura was brewing. This lightning tribulation was more than 100 times more terrifying than the one he had encountered before. Most importantly, he was in the dragon realm. If he were to undergo tribulation here, how could he hide it from the many invincible dragons in the dragon realm? Once his true body appeared, he would die. To the infernal plane. Thinking about that, Xiaoping made a prompt decision to leave the dragon realm, through the mountain and sea scripture's spatial channel, and head to the underworld plane to undergo his tribulation. Otherwise, he would definitely cause big trouble here. An hour later, Xiaoping shuttled all the way back to the burning hell. 365 Fourth Fire Tribulation Thunder, really powerful. Xiaoping immediately sensed the aura of tribulation coming from the source. This lightning tribulation was many times more terrifying than the last time. It was simply a geometric increase. At that moment, a huge whirlpool of tribulation clouds appeared in the sky, seemingly enveloping the entire burning hell. Moreover, this tribulation cloud was crimson, brewing an extremely huge power of fourth fire. This was one of the unusual flames of the world, containing extremely terrifying destructive energy. Vaguely, there seemed to be billions of fire dragons condensed from the power of fourth fire in the depths of the tribulation clouds. They were faintly discernible, as if the world was collapsing and magma was pouring down. If this destructive energy poured down, it would definitely cause a scene of destruction. Wherever the flames went, there would be a sea of fire. Not a blade of grass would grow, and all things would be destroyed. However, for the infernal golden crow bloodline, the power of fourth fire was not so terrifying. This made him feel a lot more at ease. Perhaps he could take advantage of this tribulation lightning to further strengthen the power of his bloodline. This was a tribulation, but also an opportunity. And this scene was immediately discovered by the many demons and nether ghosts in the burning hell. What's going on? Why did the entire burning hell suddenly dim, as if it was enveloped by tribulation clouds? Yes, it's really terrifying. It's like the wrath of the heavens. This is simply unheard of. If it descends, the entire burning hell will be destroyed. What the hell is going on? The many demons and nether ghosts felt the fourth fire tribulation lightning in the depths of the void, and all of them trembled in fear. Even though they were all powerful demons, They could not withstand this kind of heavenly might. Moreover, the heavenly wrath was merciless. Even if they passed it, there would be no benefits. They would only be heavily injured. But if they could not pass it, only death awaited them. Don't worry. This is the Lord undergoing tribulation. This happened once before, so it's not a big deal. Some of the demons had experienced this before, so they were already very familiar with it. No way, it's the Lord undergoing tribulation? Why haven't I heard of this before? That's right. Even if the Lord has the bloodline of a demon god, there's no such thing as a tribulation. Haha, what do you know? The Lord has the bloodline of an ordinary demon god. This is the blood of a demon god that the world envies. It's completely different from ordinary demon gods. How can it be compared? So that's how it is. No wonder the Lord's strength is so terrifying. It's beyond imagination. It seems that we've really profited greatly by following the Lord. Indeed, the Lord's strength might not be comparable to those peak demon gods right now, but given time, He will definitely surpass them. At that time, minor characters like us won't even have a chance to stand at the Lord's side. This is an eternal opportunity for us, the greatest fortune. We must grasp it well. The many demons and nether ghosts discussed the matter. They all worshipped Xiaoping. In particular, after they had been corroded by the golden crow of hell's bloodline. As time went on, they became more and more loyal to Xiaoping. It was difficult for them to shake off this kind of soul imprint. This was the terrifying aspect of the corrosion of a divine beast's bloodline. It could silently and unknowingly affect one's subconscious and soul. After another half a day, the enormous power of the tribulation clouds in the sky above the burning hell finally finished brewing. It poured down on Xiaoping's head, as if it wanted to destroy this monstrous genius of the universe. Come! Xiaoping stood in the air, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. He was fearless, and his body radiated an extremely powerful aura that shook space and twisted it. Chapter 2484. In the blink of an eye, 7 days and 7 nights had passed. The 365 fourth fire tribulation thunder bombarded almost all day long. The entire burning hell was covered in the fourth fire tribulation thunder, roaring and making countless devils tremble. Bolts of fourth fire tribulation lightning fell. It could destroy the world. Ordinary immortal saints would probably lose half their lives if they were hit by a bolt of fourth fire tribulation lightning. Even the fourth fire tribulation lightning was burning crazily and would never be extinguished. Even saints with immortal bodies would be burned by the fourth fire tribulation lightning all the time until their souls were destroyed. In order to avoid the fourth fire tribulation lightning, countless fourth fire tribulation lightning were hiding. Above the burning hell, countless fourth fire tribulation lightning seemed to have turned into fire dragons, covering the sky and the earth, as if to destroy the world. Everywhere was red. Even though the burning hell was full of flame power, it was not comparable to this high-level tribulation fire power, which also caused the temperature of the entire burning hell to rise sharply. Finally passed. With a boom, as the last thick fourth fire tribulation lightning fell, Xiaoping opened his mouth and swallowed the fourth fire tribulation lightning, taking all the fourth fire tribulation lightning as his own. At this moment, he finally passed the terrifying fourth fire thunder tribulation without any danger. Not bad fourth fire tribulation lightning. Xiaoping smiled slightly. He was very satisfied with this tribulation lightning. As a golden crow of hell, its resistance to flame was too strong. It was simply a natural ruler. All the flame power was for him to use. So when these fourth fire tribulation lightning fell on him, vaguely, it was like felt as if he could perceive the swallowed by the golden crow of the law of time all over his body, as if it could distort as the fourth fire tribulation as long as there was an opportunity. He also had a full meal. He would be able to ascend taking advantage of this opportunity immediately. He swallowed a large amount of fourth fire tribulation lightning. Xiaoping's spiritual golden crow of hell the entire burning hell, awakening a total of 150 billion golden crow of hell cells. The entire burning hell had also been tempered by the tribulation and stronger, becoming several times stronger crow of hell runes appeared even when ancient fiends fought in the burning hell.
and the
couldn't
depths of the
destroy
bones
it.
showed a dark
Even if
gold
ancient
color,
fiends attacked
as if
with
more
all their
immortal
might,
divinity emerged.
they wouldn't be able to
Because
destroy
of
the
this,
burning hell.
Xiaoping felt that his understanding
a large
of the
amount
laws
of
of the
fourth fire
universe
tribulation
seemed to be
lightning
easier,
fell on every
as if a
corner
layer
of the
of
burning
window
hell,
paper had been
causing
pierced
the
by
fourth
him,
fire power
and
to scatter
understanding the
everywhere,
origin laws of the
making the
universe
burning hell
was
source
simply
even
a piece
stronger.
of cake.
It
Flame
was as
power
if he had
seemed
become
to be
the
born
son of
everywhere.
the heavenly Tao.
Many lucky
At the
burning
same
devils
time,
also found
his
an
magic
opportunity
power
to
had
grow
grown
to
to
the
the
peak
wisp
of
of the
flame
near
power
ancient
of
realm.
flame power.
He was just
and
a step
strengthened
away
the
from
flame power
advancing
in
to
their
the Middle
bodies.
Ages.
It could be
and
said that for the
comprehending the
burning
law of
hell,
time, this was a calamity, but also a fortuitous opportunity. All of a sudden, Xiaoping's spiritual consciousness expanded to thousands of light years away. He immediately sensed that outside the burning hell, there seemed to be a large number of void monsters. These void monsters' bodies were distorted, emitting a chaotic, evil and chaotic aura. There were many of them, more than 200,000, and each of them had terrifying strength. Even if a middle-level hell plane encountered 200,000 void monsters, it would suffer heavy losses. Who knew how many fiends and nether ghosts would die? They actually attracted the void monsters? Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. He knew that the void of hell was actually a very dangerous place. The reason why he didn't encounter void monsters in the burning hell and scorched earth hell was because the burning hell was too weak. Such a low-level hell plane was like a grain of sand in the vast hell world. It was completely inconspicuous, so naturally, it wouldn't attract the attention of the void monsters. After all, no human would constantly pay attention to the ants under their feet, unless those ants gathered together in large numbers. But if they advanced to a middle-level hell plane, it would be different. It was equivalent to growing from an ant to a bird. Although it would still be very weak, it would be enough to become the void monster's food. From time to time, it would attract some scattered void monsters. In addition, Xiaoping had undergone the tribulation for 7 days and 7 nights, which caused a huge energy tide and energy waves. And how could these void monsters, who were extremely sensitive to energy, sit still? They all gathered from various corners of the hell's void and set off for the burning hell. At this moment, the burning hell was like a burning sun, emitting an unparalleled light. It was like a firefly in the darkness, attracting the attention of countless void monsters. This is also a good time to test the power of my new bloodline ability. Xiaoping's eyes flashed with a hint of killing intent. To ordinary fiends, these void monsters were undying and almost impossible to kill with conventional means. But to him, these void monsters were just fuel. As long as the undying characteristic of these void monsters was removed, it was actually not a big deal. So, in an instant, his figure flashed, traversing hundreds of light years, and immediately appeared in front of these void monsters. Roar! Seeing Xiaoping's figure appear, these void monsters were a little dumbfounded. Because they had lived for so long, they had never seen a fiend come knocking on their door. After all, when those fiends saw the void monsters, which one of them didn't flee in fear? It was already too late to escape. So how would they dare to take the initiative to appear in front of them? Wasn't that just courting death? However, these irrational void monsters, whose minds were filled with chaos and slaughter, didn't think so much. Since this food had come knocking on their door, they could just eat it directly. Why should they care so much? As for the reason why these stupid fiends came to die, it wasn't important. What was important was that they could fill their stomachs and fill that seemingly endless hunger and emptiness. The void monsters roared and pounced toward Xiaoping. Chapter 2485. Bloodline Mystical Ability, Soul Shriek. Seeing these void monsters, Xiaoping did not hesitate. He immediately activated his golden crow of hell bloodline, and an immense amount of magic power surged out. Vaguely, a huge shadow of a golden crow of hell seemed to appear behind him. It was almost tangible, like the birth of a hellish sun. It emitted an unparalleled might, suppressing the space-time of thousands of light years. It was as if at this moment, even the laws of space-time had come to a standstill. Everything in the world could not move. The golden crow of hell behind him let out a long cry. With its body as the center, it let out an earth-shattering shriek. There seemed to be circles of formless soul ripples spreading out, affecting thousands of light years. A formless, bizarre, and terrifying secret technique of the soul immediately erupted. Boom! At this instant, the 200,000 void monsters were stunned. Their hearts were usually filled with chaos, slaughter, madness, and other thoughts. But now, there was an emotion called fear in their hearts. They felt that the shadow of the golden crow of hell was like the highest predator in hell. It was the ruler that devoured all life in hell. It was the destroyer of all worlds, the symbol of doomsday. Even though they were undying and indestructible void monsters, they could not withstand this power. Bang, bang, bang. But before these void monsters could escape, circles of gray soul ripples instantly affected them. In the next second, their souls, which were hidden in the distorted, chaotic, and bizarre bodies, were instantly extracted. It seemed that no matter what kind of power it was unable to resist this mysterious power that extracted souls. What's going on? What kind of power is this? Why did it become like this? Our souls were directly extracted? What kind of demon is this guy? Why does he have such a bizarre power? Why is this happening? Waves of powerful soul ripples were communicating. These void monsters were frightened and uneasy. They could not help but scream. Without the protection of their indestructible bodies, even the most ordinary demon could easily kill and devour them if they were only left with their souls. They had been in hell for such a long time. They had never seen such a bizarre and terrifying thing. It was truly beyond their imagination. It was too unbelievable. Interesting. Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. Naturally, he could also sense the communication between these soul waves. It was clear that the information given to the devils was wrong. These void monsters were not without intelligence, nor were they unable to communicate. It was just that these void monsters disdained to communicate with the demons, just like how humans would never talk to their food. They prided themselves on being a higher life form. Although their hearts were filled with chaos, slaughter, and other emotions, there seemed to be a trace of rationality and calmness in the depths of their souls, allowing them to communicate with each other. They had a high level of intelligence. However, just where did these void monsters come from? And what was their goal? Devour. Xiaoping didn't say anything. He didn't want to talk to these void monsters. Even if he asked them, they probably wouldn't answer. Since that was the case, he would just obtain information from their souls. Crash. In the blink of an eye, the golden crow of hell behind him let out another long cry. It seemed to have formed a huge dark soul vortex that covered thousands of light years. Within this range, all souls were unable to break free from this soul vortex. Ah! The void monsters let out mournful cries. They couldn't resist such a devouring force at all. All of their souls were rapidly sucked into this soul vortex. When the last soul of the void monster entered the corpse of the soul vortex, the golden crow of hell closed the soul vortex. Its mouth was chewing, letting out crunching sounds. It seemed to be crushing these souls to facilitate digestion. The souls of the void monsters were screaming and being tortured. They seemed to be suffering from intense torture and pain. Clearly, the souls of these void monsters had already been swallowed into the stomach of the golden crow of hell. Seeing this, Xiaoping finally understood what kind of existence the golden crow of hell was in hell. This was completely the most ferocious and brutal demon god of hell. It ate the souls of countless races and demon gods. It was basically a predator that stood at the peak of hell. It wasn't much different from the dark sun of the abyss world. Rumble before Xiaoping could think of anything. The souls of these void monsters that had been devoured were instantly incinerated by the furnace of hell and the solar furnace. They were refined and transformed into the purest energy. Following that, this energy rapidly surged into his limbs and bones. Bang, bang, bang. Very quickly, the golden crow of hell cells in his body also awakened rapidly. 1 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion. In the end, he had awakened a total of 50 billion golden crow of hell cells. In other words, at this moment, Xiaoping had awakened a total of 200 billion golden crow of hell cells. As expected of the best fuel, Xiaoping had a look of satisfaction. He felt his stomach warm and had a strong sense of satisfaction. It was as if he had eaten a sumptuous meal, like the Manchuhan Imperial Feast. To be honest, these void monsters were the best fuel for his golden crow of hell bloodline. Previously, he had devoured a large amount of fourth fire tribulation lightning, for a total of 7 days and 7 nights. However, he had only gained 50 billion golden crow of hell cells. But now, after killing 200,000 void monsters, he had awakened 50 billion. One could imagine how beneficial these void monsters were to the growth of his golden crow of hell bloodline. Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. After devouring the souls of these void monsters, he had also obtained a portion of their memories. These void monsters were actually intelligent life forms. It was not that they did not know how to speak. It was just that the language they spoke was completely different from the language of the demons. It was the even more mysterious void language. And this language seemed to be able to communicate across space. It was soundless like the ripples of the soul. Thus these demons and dark ghosts could not understand it at all. They thought that these void monsters could not speak, and had no intelligence. Little did they know that every time they hunted, they would call their friends and gather people to form an army. They did indeed have indestructible bodies. Even if they were killed, their souls would be reborn somewhere, and their memories would not disappear. Thus they were fearless. However, when he wanted to continue to understand and find out where these void monsters were reborn, all of his memories seemed to come to an abrupt end, as if a tyrannical and mysterious power of law had instantly erased all traces of them, disappearing without a trace. Interesting. A cold light flashed in Xiaoping's eyes. He could sense that this seemed to be the deepest secret of hell. Right now, he might not have the strength to truly touch upon it. Chapter 2486. 3 months later. Xiaoping's main body had been cultivating in the classic of mountains and seas, consolidating the power of his golden crow of hell bloodline that had suddenly skyrocketed. He was also quietly comprehending the laws of time, hoping to find an opportunity to break through to the ancient middle realm. However, his doppelganger hadn't stopped moving in the past 3 months. As the invisible dragon Theodore's ruins fermented, countless giant dragons from all over the dragon realm rushed over, in an attempt to obtain the large amount of treasures left behind by the invisible dragon. There were also many giant dragons who entered the core cave abode, planning to participate in the trial, hoping to obtain all of Theodore's treasures. The result was as one could imagine. After these giant dragons entered the space maze, it was basically like throwing meat buns at dogs. They were all heavily injured by the traps in the space maze, unable to resist at all. Xiaoping's doppelganger took advantage of this opportunity to enter the space maze and quickly capture the heavily injured giant dragons. He used the 6 Dao seals to seal their power, and captured them into the classic of mountains and seas as coolies. In just a short 3 months, he had captured a total of 2,000 giant dragons. These were not ordinary giant dragons, but at least near the ancient middle realm. If such a force were to appear in the outside world, it would definitely shock the universe. Only a place like the dragon realm could nurture so many sacred-level giant dragons. However, as the giant dragons failed, not a single one of them was able to pass the trial of the core cave abode. This matter also caused fear in the hearts of the other giant dragons that came later. Moreover, after the dragon god shrine learned of this matter, they began to stop the other ancient dragons from entering the core cave abode to participate in the trial. They could not let these ancient dragons go in and die for nothing. After all, no matter how deep the dragon realm's foundation was, it could not withstand such a loss. Damn it! What kind of a trial is this core cave abode of the invisible dragon? Not a single giant dragon has passed the trial. This is too difficult. A dragon complained. That's to be expected. After all, this is a trial created by a giant dragon that had once reached the invincible realm. How could it be so easy to pass? Indeed, if it was so easy to pass, wouldn't every giant dragon be able to do it? If they succeeded, they would immediately obtain all of the invisible dragon Theodore's inheritance. How shocking would that be? But from the looks of it, not only did no dragons pass, but not a single dragon came out alive. Yeah, there seems to be no news about the arrogant colossal dragon master Mateto after he entered. Could he have died in the trial of the core cave mansion? That's not impossible. After all, this is a trial created by the invincible dragon. Dealing with a near-ancient dragon is child's play. Fortunately, this dragon has the self-awareness to know that I can't pass this trial, so I automatically chose to give up. Otherwise, this dragon might also die in this ruins trial. That's right. As a dragon, you need to know your own limits. Otherwise, you're done for. It doesn't matter how talented you are. The dragons discussed animatedly. Many of the dragons who had entered the core cave abode were glad that they had given up on the trial after much consideration. On the surface, it seemed like they had lost a lot, and they had lost this great opportunity. But in fact, this was the right choice. After those arrogant dragons entered, none of them came out alive. Perhaps they were trapped in the space maze. It's a pity that Master Mateto actually died in the ruins. Doesn't that mean that the Enlightenment Flower, Red Blood Dragon Divine Grass, and other holy medicines are all lost in there? Isn't it? It's a pity that such a treasure is lost. I don't know how many eras such a holy medicine will only appear once. The value of a city is not enough to describe the value of this treasure. It's useless to say so much. Master Mateto is trapped in the space maze. It's impossible for him to come out. I guess the holy medicine is also lost in there. Many dragons were annoyed, especially after some ancient dragons heard the news. They even beat their feet and chest. Such an opportunity to advance to the invincible realm was lost in vain. But they had no other way. But didn't Master Mateto hold a martial arts training class before? It seems that he plundered a lot of dragon crystals. Now what about those dragons who paid? Some dragons suddenly remembered that Master Mateto held a martial arts training class, which made the dragon realm bustle. What else can we do? Master Mateto may have died in the ruins. Can we still ask him for a refund? That's true. The death of a dragon is like an extinguished lamp. There's no way to blame him. It's a pity that those dragons who just paid not long ago died before the class started. The dragons discussed animatedly, all of them sighing. At this moment, in the Dragon God Shrine, some elders of the Dragon God Shrine were also talking about the news of the appearance of the invisible dragon Theodore's ruins. Because too many dragons had died recently, they were worried and decided to intervene in this matter. I didn't expect that the ruins of the invisible dragon Theodore would appear. I thought that the ruins would disappear in the depths of the endless dimension with Theodore's death. Yes, according to historical records, Theodore was a greedy, stingy, despicable, and shameless dragon. I didn't expect him to be so generous and willing to leave all his treasures behind. This is what humans say. When a man is about to die, his words are kind, and when a bird is about to die, its cry is sad. Maybe when he was dying, Theodore found his conscience and wanted to use these treasures to benefit the younger generation of dragons. Many dragon elders were talking about it. To be honest, there were many dragons in the Dragon God Shrine who had lived from the primeval times until now, and they were very familiar with the invisible dragon Theodore's personality. In that era, the invisible dragon Theodore was a scourge, the kind that was hated by all. If he hadn't reached the invincible realm, he would have been killed by the other dragons. After all, this bastard used his space bloodline to go to the lairs of other giant dragons every day to plunder their treasures. Any dragon that received it would be lucky if they didn't kill Theodore. Moreover, it wasn't just the dragon clan that hated Theodore. Countless clans and sages in the universe had been killed by the invisible dragon Theodore. In short, there was a 90% chance that the invisible dragon Theodore was responsible for the news of a treasure being stolen somewhere in the universe. If it weren't for the invasion of the demons from the deep abyss that put the entire universe in danger, they would have banded together and killed the super thief, the invisible dragon Theodore. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to keep the treasures they had worked so hard to obtain. One could imagine that they knew that the invisible dragon Theodore was willing to leave his treasures behind to benefit the younger generation of dragons. It was like a pie falling from the sky. In that era, no one would believe that the invisible dragon Theodore would do such a thing. Fupin Chinese. Chapter 2487. Ahem. One of the elder dragons coughed. Alright, Theodore has been dead for who knows how many years. Even if he was detestable when he was alive, the news of his death is still a great relief to us. However, a dragon's death is like an extinguished lamp, so there's no need to blame him. Moreover, he left behind a large number of treasures he plundered from all over the universe when he died. Does that count as a blessing to the dragons of the Dragon Realm? That's not necessarily a bad thing. He felt that Theodore was worthy of praise just from the fact that he left behind a legacy. Of course, if he knew that Theodore was still alive, he would probably want to strangle him to death. Alright, Elder, what you said makes sense. No matter what happened to Theodore when he was alive, it's been so many years now, and there's no grudge between us anymore. One of the fire dragons nodded. But there's one thing that's very important right now, and that's that the trial in the core cave abode is too dangerous. No dragon has been able to pass it until now, and at least 1,000 ancient dragons have disappeared in the space maze. If this continues, we'll suffer heavy losses. I think we need to temporarily seal the ruins, so that other dragons can't enter as they please. At the mention of this, his expression became very solemn as he stared at the many elder dragons. After all, 2,000 giant dragons had disappeared, and they were all holy dragons at that. Normally, this would have caused a huge uproar, enough to shake the entire dragon god shrine. It had been many years since the dragon realm had suffered such a loss. If it weren't for the ruins trial, they wouldn't have been able to sit still. It was fine for the trial to be difficult, but killing so many holy dragons and causing heavy losses to the dragon realm was unacceptable. The dragon realm couldn't bear such a loss. We do need to deal with it. After all, this is a trial created by an invincible dragon. It's too difficult for a middle ancient dragon to pass, and ordinary dragons would be courting death if they enter. We can't let this continue. If we continue, then everyone who enters will die. This isn't a trial, it's suicide. We can't let this continue. Hearing this, some of the elder dragons nodded in agreement. To be honest, the fire dragon's words did strike a chord in their hearts, and they were a little worried. The reason they had a meeting here was because they were worried about the huge side effects of the ruins. Is there no way to break through the invisible dragon Theodore's relic's restrictive formation? Just snatch the treasures inside. Why do we have to go through that stupid trial? Some elders suggested violent destruction, flipping the table on the spot. It felt like there was no need to follow the rules set by the invisible dragon Theodore. With the strength of the dragon god shrine, they could easily destroy the array formation and take all the treasures for themselves. This was the style of dragons. You think we don't want to? It's not that I don't want to, but I can't. One of the elder dragons shook his head. That invisible dragon Theodore has indeed reached the pinnacle of the law of space. Some of his restrictive formations are already close to the power of divine restrictions. If a dragon who has reached the invincible realm tries to break the restriction formation inside by force, it will be instantly sent to the forbidden land of darkness or other dangerous places by the space divine prohibition inside. We can't take the risk. Of course, we can also slowly break through the restrictions and arrays of the ruins, but it will take a long time. I'm afraid it will take at least hundreds of millions of years to slowly succeed. It was very helpless. They would have done so long ago, if they could break through by force. However, the invisible dragon Theodore had already thought of this, and made many measures to prevent them from breaking through by force. If a dragon tried to break through by force, it might even cause the entire cave abode to explode, destroying all the treasures inside, and sending them into the turbulence of time and space. The only reason they wanted to enter the ruins was to obtain the treasures. If all the treasures inside were destroyed, it would be meaningless, and they would be in a difficult position. That damned invisible dragon Theodore, he's been dead for so many years, and yet he still causes so much trouble for us. He's even guarding against us. Some of the elder dragons gritted their teeth. Forget it. It's his inheritance, and he can do whatever he wants with it. It's nothing. Besides, it's only a few 100 million years. It'll pass in the blink of an eye. Some of the elder dragons said indifferently. For immortal dragons like them, a few 100 million years was no different from a few years. All right,
Since we've made the decision, we'll temporarily seal Theodore's ruins and forbid other dragons from entering. We'll treat this place as a forbidden zone for the dragons. One of the elder dragons made a decision. Once we completely break through the restrictions on the ruins, all the treasures inside will belong to the dragon god shrine. As for the many sacred herbs and treasures inside, we can exchange them with the dragon god shrine's contribution points. The more contribution points we have, the more precious the treasures we get. Yes, we have no objections. The elders of the dragon god shrine nodded when they heard this. They too felt that this was the most appropriate way to avoid internal strife and fights to the death among the dragons. After all, the universe was currently in troubled times and needed to accumulate strength. The dragons couldn't afford any internal strife. Soon, the dragon god shrine sent dragons down to clear the area, clearing out all the dragons that had entered the ruins. Any dragons that wanted to enter the ruins were kept outside and were not allowed to enter. Although many of the dragons complained, none of them could resist the dragon god shrine's might. It didn't take long for Xiaoping to learn about the news. After all, it wasn't a top secret, and it had already caused an uproar on the internet. Everyone knew about it. It seems like there's no way to catch more dragons. Xiaoping felt a little regretful after hearing the news. He didn't expect the dragon god shrine to react so quickly. Now that he had made this decision, it was unlikely that he would be able to capture a bunch of dragons effortlessly, just like how he had sent them to their deaths one by one. Moreover, if the dragon god shrine sealed the ruins of the invisible dragon, the area within hundreds of millions of kilometers would become a forbidden zone. If that happened, it would be difficult for him to leave even if he continued to stay in the invisible dragon's cave abode. Once he left, he would probably be discovered by the elders of the dragon god shrine. After all, they stayed here all the time to break through the restrictions on the cave abode. It's time to leave this place. Thinking of this, Xiaoping decided to leave the ruins of the invisible dragon. In any case, he had already plundered all the treasures in this place, so there was nothing to stay here for. Swoosh! In a few breaths, before the dragon god shrine completely cleared the area, Hao Ren's figure flashed, and he instantly left the relic through the teleportation array in the relic. Chapter 2488. At this time, in a secret place in the dragon world, more than a dozen strange and eerie auras suddenly appeared. Their bodies exuded an extremely evil abyssal aura. If Xiaoping was here, he would definitely recognize that these creatures came from the abyss. Originally, their abyssal auras couldn't be concealed from the will of Dragon World, but they seemed to have some kind of artifact on them that could conceal their auras, so that the will of Dragon World couldn't detect them. Kiki, the dragons are really a bunch of fools. Who would have thought that the ruins of the invisible dragon Theodore would make them kill each other to this extent? There's nothing we can do about it. This is the desire of life. No one can resist the desire for treasures. It's not just these dragons, even us abyssal life forms are the same. You're right, but the more of these foolish dragons die the better. Weakening the power of the dragon realm, as much as possible, would be the greatest benefit to our abyss. That's true. But the death of so many dragons is still too little. It's not enough to hurt the dragon realm at all. We must give the dragon realm a ruthless blow, in order to make them suffer heavy losses. The group of fiendish demons snickered, a cunning glint in their eyes. By the way, we've finally found the eternal light plane hidden in the depths of the endless space-time. One of the demons said. What? Have you finally found the mysterious eternal light plane world? Many fiendish demons were shocked to hear that. That's right. After spending countless epochs and wasting a great deal of manpower and resources of our abyss, we finally found traces of the eternal light realm in the depths of space-time. Without a doubt, our abyss king these races
would
personally
definitely
take
take
action
action
to
to
guide
guide
the treasures in the eternal light
vicinity of the dragon realm
and suffer heavy
Soon,
losses.
it would be discovered
Most
by those
importantly,
foolish dragons.
the eternal light
A
realm's
demon's
internal
said,
environment
and this
was
news will not only be
dangerous.
known by the giant
Even
dragons,
an invincible saint
but also
might
by the
perish there.
Qilins, Phoenix's
If our abyssal
Kunpeng's
world is
Taotais,
lucky,
We might even be able to kill the invincible sages of these races. A cunning and vicious look appeared on its face. Our abyssal world will have a huge advantage. The eternal light plane contains the secrets that had just spoken, and there are many treasures inside. Indeed, this plane world actually took the initiative to give it away. It is indeed farsighted. Dragons obtain just the invincible Isn't that too much of a pity? Alone caused the dragon race regretfully to lose so many giant dragons. If the eternal light realm was controlled by our like the eternal light boundary, it would definitely bring great benefits to our entire more than 100 times greater. How foolish! Indeed, one of the fiendish sacrificing a single eternal light realm. Haven't you learned enough from the primordial casualties to these divine beast clans? Don't you understand what it means to take first? This is indeed a great deal. You must first give. We are still too short-sighted. How can there be gains? And are unable to comprehend the great wisdom of light realm kings and let the dragon race. Right. Qilin, hearing this, the demons nodded. They immediately approved of this plan, and other races just a small trick was enough to cause these races to lose a large number of their elite combat strength. Moreover, the abyssal world didn't need to pay anything, so why not? They could even sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, watching these mythological beast races fight to the death and reap the benefits. Of course, we aren't planning to hand over all the treasures in the eternal light boundary. The abyssal demon cackled. In reality, our abyssal kings have already sent an army to hide in the depths of space-time, lying in ambush in a space-time near the eternal light boundary. If these mythological beasts enter the eternal light boundary and have a chance to obtain some treasures, we can suddenly kill our way out and kill all the mythological beasts that leave the eternal light boundary alive. At that time, not only will we be able to severely injure these mythological beast races, but we will also be able to obtain all the treasures in the eternal light boundary and plunder all the benefits. An extremely treacherous expression appeared on its face. Brilliant, this plan is truly brilliant. As expected of the abyssal kings, they've taken every conceivable possibility into account. Pushing out the eternal light boundary alone is enough to make these mythological beasts fight to the death, resulting in countless casualties. But this isn't important. At the crucial moment, we can ambush them and kill all the mythological beasts that leave the eternal light boundary alive. Then we abyssal demons will eat up all the benefits. Hearing this plan, I'm so excited that my entire body is trembling. This is simply too wonderful. I can't wait to hear the mythological beasts' anguished, despairing, and miserable screams. Presumably, after this plan is completed, the giant dragons, Qilins, phoenixes, kunpangs, tautais, Pishio-Suanis, and other races will definitely suffer heavy losses. There will be countless casualties, and they will no longer be able to contend with our abyss. Many abyssal demons were extremely excited. They didn't expect the abyss to actually have such a grand plan, plotting all the mythological beasts together, and wanting to capture them all in one fell swoop. What a grand plan this was. Thinking about it, they couldn't help but tremble. This was simply an epic plan that would definitely leave a deep mark in the history of the universe. Right, I don't know when this plan will start. I can't wait anymore. A demon asked. Don't worry, the plan will start very soon. 3 days later, the eternal light boundary will silently happen, and they will also think that they discovered it themselves. They definitely won't find anything fishy. As long as we wait quietly, when the dragon realm is in chaos, and the abyss world will launch an all-out attack, we will coordinate from the inside and outside. We will definitely be able to break through this world and kill all the stupid dragons in the dragon realm. An abyssal demon laughed cruelly. If that's the case, then that's great. I've long wanted to leave this damn dragon realm. There are clearly so many beautiful souls here, but I can't devour them. This feeling is too unbearable. Hee, I can't wait to start a massacre in the dragon realm. Many abyssal demons were filled with killing intent. Intense demonic chi gushed out of their bodies, almost corroding this space-time into a black world, emitting a strong corrosive power. Chapter 2489. Several days later, as expected, an ancient dragon traveling through time and space, as well as the phoenixes, Qilins, Pixius, and other sages, discovered the cosmic light realm that had appeared out of thin air at the same time. They immediately cried out in surprise. Because of this, they fought each other, each wanting to monopolize this exclusive information. But even after fighting for a long time,
they were unable to determine a victor. In the end, they could only give up on the idea of silencing their enemies and quickly return to their lairs to pass on the news. Within a few breaths, the news of the cosmic light realm's appearance reached the dragon god temple and quickly spread throughout the entire dragon realm. The other divine beast clans also learned of this matter. For a time, the dragons were in an uproar, and Xia Ping had undoubtedly received this shocking news as well. Cosmic light realm? What is that? Xia Ping, however, looked puzzled. He had no idea what this meant. He looked at Yi Mingyao. I'm not too sure either. Yi Mingyao shook her head, indicating that she didn't know either. Perhaps this thing is very famous in the dragon realm. Why don't we ask the invisible dragon Theodore? Perhaps he knows something. You're right. Xia Ping nodded. With a thought, he immediately grabbed the invisible dragon Theodore, who was imprisoned in the classic of mountains and seas. What did you say? The cosmic light realm has appeared. The invisible dragon Theodore's eyes widened in disbelief upon hearing this news. That's right. This news has already spread like wildfire. There aren't many dragons in the dragon realm who don't know about it. But what kind of place is the cosmic light realm? Why are so many sacred dragons so excited? Xia Ping said. Of course they're excited. The cosmic light realm is a unique world formed after the fall of a god. The invisible dragon Theodore cried out. What? When Xia Ping and Yi Mingyao heard this news, they were both shocked. What kind of thing was involved with the gods? It was definitely something that was beyond their imagination. Impossible. Didn't they say that there are no gods in this universe? You're not bragging, are you? Yi Mingyao looked at Theodore suspiciously. Haha, ignorant fool. What do you know? The invisible dragon Theodore said disdainfully. It's just that there are no gods in this era. But in the previous era, it was a world where gods lived. What do you mean? Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. He had a feeling that he could hear the deepest secrets of the universe from Theodore. A secret that only the invincible saints would know. The others didn't have the qualifications to know, and they wouldn't be told. You should know that even the universe has a lifespan. Nothing is eternal. The formless dragon Theodore said faintly. Of course, the lifespan of the universe is very, very long. From birth, growth, maturity, decline, and destruction, it could span countless eras. It is so long that even the gods would forget about it. But no matter what, the universe would still decline one day, and that day would be the twilight of the gods. All living beings in the universe would die because of the destruction of the universe. Then, after the universe is destroyed, a new universe will be born, and the next era of the universe will be formed. Countless lives in the universe will be born, and this cycle will continue. Is there such a thing? Could it be that when the universe perishes, no life will be able to survive? Xia Ping and Yi Mingyao narrowed their eyes as they stared at the invisible dragon Theodore, feeling a great impact. That's a good question. The invisible dragon Theodore chuckled. Actually, the destruction of the universe doesn't necessarily mean that other life forms will perish. In fact, we dragons, phoenixes, cheilants, black tortoises, and other races are all powerful races that have survived since the last era of the universe. The last era of the universe? Yi Mingyao felt as if she had heard a great secret about the dragon race and other divine beasts. Stop bragging. If you were really strong enough to survive the apocalypse, the universe would have long been dominated by the dragon race. Would there even be a place for the other peak races to appear? Xia Ping felt that the invisible dragon Theodore was talking nonsense. Brat, what do you know? The invisible dragon Theodore said disdainfully. Do you think there's no price to pay to survive the apocalypse? The god of our dragon race, the ancestral dragon, paid a great price. He turned his body into a huge dragon realm and formed a powerful universal law that belonged to his realm, forcibly resisting the power of the apocalypse. But it was also because of this that the ancestral dragon fell. The gods of the other races, cheilants, phoenixes, black tortoises, tautais, and other races, also did the same. That's why they were able to survive since the last era of the universe. But it's also because we are creatures of the last era of the universe that the power in our bodies and the power of the laws we comprehend are incompatible with the universal laws of this era. If we appear in the universe,
We will be targeted by the universal laws at all times. Every time we make a breakthrough, we will suffer the wrath of heaven, and even misfortune will befall us. We will encounter enemies everywhere. Therefore, it's not that we don't want to leave the dragon realm and go to other places to occupy star fields. In fact, we can't leave the dragon realm at all. He was very helpless. However, he also said that it was not a problem to leave the dragon realm for a short period of time. But when he made a breakthrough, he must return to the dragon realm. Otherwise, he would be contaminated by the aura of the universal laws of this universe, and he would suffer the wrath of heaven until he was struck to death. The stronger one was, the more powerful the wrath of heaven would be. Every dragon dared not leave the dragon realm when they were close to breaking through. They could only obediently stay in the dragon realm. Moreover, when the universe began to be born, the universal laws of the last era of the universe greatly restricted these creatures and did not allow them to easily appear in the universe. Only when the universe's creatures of this era gradually grew up, and a large number of life forms could keep pace with the dragon race and other races, could the dragon race and other races appear in other universes. If it was in the primordial era, as long as the dragons left the dragon realm, they would be struck by lightning. But now, with the passage of time, the universe of this era seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. The various universal laws of the universe were firm and indestructible, so the restrictions on the dragons had weakened a lot. It was like a superpower that had grown up and had enough power. It would not care about those weak countries, so it was more tolerant of other forces. After all, the dragon race and other races of the last era of the universe seemed to be very powerful, but they could not occupy much of an advantage against the other peak races of the universe. At most, they were on par. Xia Ping had a strange expression. Why was this feeling so similar to when he made a breakthrough? He would also be struck by lightning every time he made a breakthrough. Could it be the same for these dragons? Chapter 2490. In other words, the Eternal Light Realm is a paradise left behind by the gods of the previous universe era? Yi Mengyao narrowed her eyes. That's right. Invisible Dragon Theodore nodded. In fact, the Eternal Light Realm appeared once in the primordial era. At that time, the myriad races of the universe entered and plundered many treasures from within. Some people even collected some divine blood from within, which allowed their cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. Some even advanced to the invincible realm, allowing them to roam the universe unhindered. What? Yi Mengyao was shocked. The Eternal Light Realm had appeared once, and countless people had entered it to obtain a large number of treasures and benefits. However, the Eternal Light Realm only appeared once before quickly closing, once again hiding in the depths of space-time. I didn't expect it to appear again, after so many years. Invisible Dragon Theodore sighed. Now that this paradise left behind by the gods is bound to cause disputes among countless races. It might even lead to war. After all, the Eternal Light Realm might contain the secret to becoming a god. The secret to becoming a god. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes as he looked at Invisible Dragon Theodore. If that was the case, then the secret contained in the Eternal Light Realm was truly incredible. It would definitely cause a sensation throughout the world. Brat, do you know the truth behind the war between the Abyss world and the myriad races of the universe in the primordial era? Invisible Dragon Theodore cackled. The truth is very simple. Those Abyss kings wanted to become the first god of this universe era. Whoever becomes the first god will be able to dominate everything in this era and open the era of the gods. Unfortunately, becoming a god is extremely difficult, especially to become the first god of this universe era. The difficulty is no less than a mortal without any talent becoming an immortal sage. So even after countless years, no life has been able to become a god. Even so, there are still countless invincible sages laying out plans, eyeing covetously like tigers watching their prey, waiting for the opportunity to become a god. Hearing this, Xia Ping suddenly recalled the ruins he had entered before. It seemed to have been left behind by the human race's sage of fortune. The other party had tampered with the ruins' treasures countless times to disguise his own death. It was likely that he had spent countless years laying out an earth-shattering trap. The reason for such a plan was probably to become the first god of this universe era. He didn't know why the position of the first god was so important, but the countless beings in the universe would be willing to pay any price in order to fight for the position of the first god. Whichever race produced the first deity would be the absolute overlord of this era of the universe. Since the previous era of the universe was the era of the gods, then the eternal light realm wasn't the only god who could withstand the great shattering of the universe, right? Could it be that there aren't any abodes left behind by other gods? Xiaoping asked. That's a good question. The conclusion is that there are, and quite a few of them. Theodore cackled. I'm sure you've heard of the Forbidden Darkness region before, but you don't know why it's so dangerous. Even invincible saints have fallen there. The reason was very simple. The Forbidden Dark Zone was an absolute forbidden area formed after the fall of the gods. Many invincible saints called the Forbidden Dark Zone the graveyard of the gods. That place truly contained the ultimate secrets of the gods. There were countless god caves left behind, and a large number of secrets about the previous era of the universe were hidden there. But it was also because of this that the graveyard of the gods was too dangerous. Even if invincible saints entered that place, they would die if they weren't careful. There was nowhere to run. So, I believe you know why the cosmic dimension is so maddening. After all, it's a lone abode of a god, and the danger it contains is much less than a forbidden area of darkness. So it naturally became a treasure trove that countless races fight madly for. The graveyard of the gods. Xiaoping and Yi Mingyao looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Such information was probably top secret even among the upper echelons of the human race. They probably didn't have the qualifications to know such information unless they reached the level of primordial saints. After all, the Forbidden Dark Zone was too dangerous, and anyone who didn't reach the level of primordial saints would die if they entered. Why would the Forbidden Dark Zone become the graveyard of the gods? Were they all good friends who liked to die together? Yi Mingyao asked. I'm not sure. This is an eternal mystery. Even our dragon god shrine doesn't know much about it. Invisible Dragon Theodore shook his head. But someone once made a shocking guess that they did it for a purpose. They were willing to sleep in this graveyard in order to withstand the power of the great destruction of the universe, waiting for the opportunity to be resurrected. He revealed another earth-shattering secret. Resurrection? Those gods can still be resurrected? Hearing this, Yi Mingyao was shocked. It's already difficult to kill someone at the level of a saint. What if they reach the level of a god? This is a powerful life that far exceeds our imagination. It's not hard to imagine that an existence of such a level can be resurrected. Invisible Dragon Theodore laughed. Even many dragons in our dragon god shrine think that the ancestral dragon may not be dead, and is only in a deep sleep now. One day, he will be resurrected in this universe. Yi Mingyao was impressed. Although Invisible Dragon Theodore was a coward, he was still a saint who had reached the invincible realm. He knew a lot of information. For ordinary people, this was top secret information. But for Theodore, it was nothing. It was completely common sense, and he casually said it. Theodore's life experience alone was a great wealth. What two fools. At this moment, the formless dragon Theodore was secretly laughing in his heart. He had deliberately leaked this information to tempt that damned bastard Xiaoping. How could he not be tempted after knowing the secrets of the gods? When the time came, this abominable brat would inevitably enter the eternal light realm, and perhaps even enter dangerous places like the Forbidden Dark Zone, to find the secret and path to become a god. He would probably soon hear that this kid had fallen in a place like the Forbidden Dark Zone. Then he would be able to quickly escape the evil hands of this evil brat. Of course, he wasn't worried that this kid might gain a huge harvest. After all, it was the graveyard of the gods, and the danger it contained was not something a mere saint could imagine. Over the years, countless saints had come one after another to search for the secrets within. But so far, not many saints had been able to find the reason. He didn't believe that this little brat was an exception. Therefore, with just a little trick, he could trap this shameless and despicable bastard to death. Why wouldn't he be happy? In fact, as long as this kid asked, it would tell him everything without hiding anything. The more secrets these gods knew, the faster they would die. The secrets of the gods were not something that mortals could covet. Third sect leader. Chapter 2491. So that's how it is. Thank you for your answer. You can go back now. After hearing this, Xiaoping wanted to seal Theodore and throw him into the world of the classic of mountains and seas again. What? The formless dragon Theodore was so angry that his face turned green. He was simply a tool of this shameless human, using him when he needed him, and throwing him away when he didn't. How despicable. But before he could say anything, he was thrown into the world of the classic of mountains and seas in the next second. Do you think what Theodore said is true? Xiaoping looked at Yi Mingyao. I think it's true. He has no reason to lie to us. Plus, I did hear some similar rumors from my family, but I didn't go into detail. Yi Mingyao said in a low voice. If that's the case, it seems that I really have to go to the Eternal Light Realm. I can't let go of such a treasure land. Xiaoping rubbed his chin. He felt that since this place held the secret to becoming a god, he didn't want to miss it. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Whoever missed it would be a fool. But this news isn't limited to the dragons. It seems that the saints of the Qilin, Phoenix, and other divine beast races also know about it. Even the invincible saints might go in. It's very dangerous. Yi Mingyao's expression was solemn. She felt that the Eternal Light Realm wasn't like Theodore's ruins. This place didn't limit the strength of other dragons, so anyone could go in. Even if Xiaoping could deal with ancient Middle Realm dragons now, he wouldn't be a match for ancient dragons, or even primordial dragons at all. He would be crushed in an instant. That's not a big problem. Xiaoping rubbed his chin. As long as I transform into a dragon, I believe they won't easily harm dragons of the same race. Plus, I have many clones, so I can send them to explore dangerous places. Even if I encounter any danger, I won't have to worry about my life. My ability to stay alive is top-notch. He felt that the Eternal Light Realm was indeed dangerous. Countless saints would go in, but his ability to stay alive was not bad. If he did encounter any danger, he would be able to escape in time. If that's the case, then you can go in. But you must be careful. Yi Mingyao nodded, but she was still a little worried about Xiaoping's safety. No matter what, this was the Eternal Light Realm, a cave left behind by a god. The danger it contained was beyond imagination. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Xiaoping patted his chest. One day later, Xiaoping transformed into another ancient dragon and traveled through the void toward the Dragon God Shrine. Since the Dragon God Shrine controlled the teleportation array formation to the Eternal Light Realm, they could instantly reach the vicinity of the Eternal Light Realm. Soon, he arrived at the famous Dragon God Shrine in the Dragon Realm. A gigantic and majestic palace appeared before Xiaoping. The buildings towered into the clouds and stretched endlessly, like a huge dragon that spanned across the land, exuding an unparalleled aura. There were powerful restrictive formations all around, and this place could be said to be the safest place in the dragon world. There were forbidden areas everywhere, and countless holy dragons lived here. It could be said that this place was the center of the dragon world, and it controlled the fate of the entire dragon world. Vaguely, there seemed to be thick chains of order in the depths of the void, outlining the void. Even if an invincible saint was in this place, he would be completely sealed by the divine restriction here, unable to move. No giant dragon could cause trouble in the Dragon God Shrine. Xiaoping could sense that there was a terrifying power brewing in the depths of the Dragon God Shrine. This power could even kill an invincible saint, and it was the true foundation of the dragon world. And such a foundation had never been used even in the primeval era, when there was a war with the abyssal races. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, many holy dragons came from all over the dragon world. They had also heard about the appearance of the Eternal Light Realm, and they had all arrived at a square in the outer hall of the Dragon God Shrine. Basically, All the giant dragons that wanted to enter the eternal light realm had to gather here. There are so many giant dragons. Xiaoping looked at the giant dragons flying in from all directions, and he immediately sighed. There were too many giant dragons that had reached the sacred level. He could see hundreds of thousands of immortal dragons with his naked eyes alone. This number was much more than the human race's immortal saints. He had captured 2,000 holy dragons, but it was child's play to the entire dragon clan. Far from a serious injury, it could only be said that the dragon clan was indeed a powerful race that had survived since the era of the previous universe. They had lived for countless years, and the number of immortal dragons they produced was simply far greater than the other peak races of this universe. However, the true high-end combat power of the race was still the invincible saints. An invincible saint could fight a group of immortal saints, and at this level, quantity was not the most important. Therefore, to determine whether a race was strong, it still depended on how many invincible saints they had. It was just like in the nuclear era of his previous life. When it came to war, it did not depend on how many conventional weapons one had, but how many nuclear bombs one had stored. Of course, everyone had nuclear weapons, and when they were evenly matched, it naturally depended on the conventional weapons. From this point, it could be seen that the Dragon Clan was indeed one of the strongest among the peak races, and it was not something the human race could compare to at the moment. The current human race could at most maintain a balanced situation in front of the Dragon Clan. Whoosh! Without waiting for Xiaoping to think further, he landed on the square. Hey brother, you look unfamiliar. Are you a dragon that just ascended to the near-ancient realm? At this time, a near-ancient realm fire dragon saw Xiaoping and immediately greeted him enthusiastically. That's right, I indeed just ascended not long ago. Xiaoping nodded. So that's how it is. I'm Tenchi, what's your name? Tenchi asked curiously. My name is Wuwudi. Xiaoping said. Wuwudi, why does this name sound so familiar? Yeah, I seem to have heard of it somewhere. There seems to be a very arrogant dragon called Master Matato. It's very similar to this name. Could it be that Master Matato is related to you? Suddenly many dragons turned around. During this period of time, they had heard of the name Master Matato. He was clearly a near-ancient dragon, but he was extremely ferocious and could even kill a middle-ancient dragon. That's right, that's my big brother, but I haven't seen him for a long time, Xiaoping said casually. So that's how it is. No wonder the name is so similar, so you're a family. My condolences. Your big brother is trapped in the ruins of the invisible dragon Theodore, and he still hasn't come out. Tenchi looked at Xiaoping with a pitiful expression. It's okay, good dragons don't live long. Bad dragons live for hundreds of millions of years. That bad embryo won't die so easily. Of course, if he dies, it can also benefit the public. Xiaoping waved his hand. The surrounding dragons had strange expressions. It seemed that the relationship between these two brothers was not very good. Third Sect Master. Chapter 2492. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As time passed, more and more holy dragons appeared on the square of the Dragon God Shrine. There were even ancient dragons, primordial dragons and primordial dragons. Normally, these dragons would sleep in their lairs and would not easily come out. But now that the news from the eternal light realm had completely alarmed these saint dragons, they did not even bother to sleep and woke up one after another. The primordial dragons stood at the center of the square, emanating an unparalleled aura. Even though they didn't emit any power, they still had an overwhelming presence. One could feel the vicissitudes of time flowing from them, as if they'd lived since the beginning of the universe. Their power was simply unfathomable. There were at least 1,000 primordial dragons like them. Near primordial dragons like Xiaoping were just small shrimps in the square. They could only stand at the edge of the square, and didn't have the right to enter the center. The dragon clan is truly powerful. Xiaoping sighed at the appearance of these dragons. As expected of a race that had survived since the era of the previous universe, just these holy dragons alone were enough to rival the peak races. Moreover, they still had all sorts of trump cards that they hadn't used yet. Their strength was frighteningly deep. Boom! At that moment, a huge platform suddenly appeared on the square. Then, elderly men in luxurious robes with dragon horns on their heads in human form appeared. Each of them emitted a powerful aura, and even the primordial dragon standing at the front couldn't help but lower its head to show respect. Without a doubt, these elders were the true masters of the Dragon God Shrine, giant dragons who had reached the invincible realm. There were 28 such dragons all at once, and they were distributed around the platform. Xiaoping was speechless when he saw this. There were only 9 invincible realm saints in the human clan, but there were 28 invincible realm dragons in the dragon clan. In terms of high-end combat power, the dragon race had an overwhelming advantage, and the human race couldn't compare for now. However, because the dragon race wasn't a creature of this era, they were restricted by the laws of the universe. So if these dragons left the dragon realm and appeared in the outside world, their strength would be greatly suppressed. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't casually leave the dragon realm. Instead, they would stay in the dragon realm to protect it. According to Theodore, the formless dragon, the laws of the universe would only remove the suppression on the invincible dragons after the first god appeared in this universe. But for now, they still couldn't easily appear in the outside world. Fortunately, the laws of the universe imposed many restrictions on these races. Otherwise, the human race, demon race, elemental race, insect race, and other peak races would not have been able to grow. Everyone. At this moment, a bald old man wearing a red singlet, sunglasses, holding a black cane, and flip-flops casually walked out. His face was kind and gentle like a spring breeze. He was Samuel, the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine. His strength had reached the invincible realm, and he was also the strongest person in the entire dragon realm. It looked ordinary, but when it transformed into human form, it looked like a wretched old man who still had evil intentions even though he was old. However, none of the giant dragons present dared to underestimate the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine. He was the most powerful dragon that had lived since the era of the previous universe. His lifespan was longer than all the dragons present. He had witnessed the destruction and birth of the universe, and he had also served the ancestral dragon. He might even have fought against the gods during the era of the gods. Even during the Abyss War of the Primordial Era, the flames of war swept across the universe, and he was ambushed by dozens of Abyss Kings, but he still couldn't be killed. He was also known as the giant dragon with the highest chance of becoming the first dragon god in this era of the dragon race. It was also considered by all the races in the universe to be the closest to the gods. Every giant dragon living in the dragon realm had heard of the legend of the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine, Samuel. It could be said that most of the giant dragons grew up listening to Samuel's story. Back when the dragon scientist Titania was rampaging through the universe and committing all kinds of evil, it was Samuel, the shrine master of the Dragon God Shrine, who personally joined forces with the other invincible sages to shatter the immemorial heavenly dragon talisman. Titania was chased all over the universe and almost died. This was a living legend. The eternal light realm has appeared. This is a world formed after the fall of the gods. There is a big secret inside, and it might hide the opportunity to become a god. However, it is also very dangerous, and every step is filled with danger. Even the invincible dragons might not be able to survive inside. Samuel, the shrine master of the dragon god shrine, said, "Therefore, dragons below the immortal dragon level shouldn't enter. You have to be at least near the immortal dragon level and understand the law of space to survive in the eternal light realm." What? Hearing this, many of the immortal dragons wailed. They couldn't even enter such an important relic of the gods. However, this was the decision of the dragon god shrine, and it was also the order of the shrine master of the dragon god shrine Samuel. They had to obey. Anyone who dared to disobey the order would be immediately thrown into prison and imprisoned until the end of time. If it was serious, they might even be executed. Some of the immortal dragons, and above nodded, they felt that this was a matter of course. It was the eternal light realm, a cave abode left behind by the gods. It was full of danger. Although there were many treasures and opportunities, the danger was also extremely fatal. Even the immortal dragons felt that it was extremely dangerous. If the immortal dragons went in, it would be suicide. How could they obtain opportunities? They naturally wouldn't allow such suicidal behavior. Otherwise, the new generation of the dragon world would be finished. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Soon, these immortal dragons left the square of the dragon god shrine. They had no hope of entering the eternal light realm. All of a sudden, the entire square seemed to have lost half of the dragons. In fact, even among the dragon clan, the higher the cultivation of the immortal dragons, the rarer the number. Well, that's the general rules. Samuel, the shrine master of the dragon god shrine, said, "After entering the eternal light realm, remember to be careful. You can form small teams or fight alone. It's fine as long as you have the confidence to survive. Moreover, this time, it isn't just our dragon clan that is entering the eternal light realm. There are also brats from other clans. You have to be careful and don't fail miserably." After saying this, he gently poked the ground with his walking stick. Suddenly, a huge super-spatial teleportation array appeared on the square of the dragon god shrine. Boom! In the blink of an eye, all the immortal dragons present, including Xia Ping, felt the void distort. Time and space changed, and all the immortal dragons on the square were teleported to another void. /book_65922/L Chapter 2493. Boom! In the next second, most of the holy dragons in the dragon realm were transported to a place in the void. There was no end in sight, as if they were in a void of space-time. They had no idea where this place was. A huge sphere appeared in front of them. It was like a sun, and all the dragons felt extremely small in front of this sphere. However, this sphere was not a sun, and it could not emit eternal heat. It was a super world, and it shone with gentle light. It was as if this world was the only source of light in the void, illuminating the dark starry sky. This world lay in the depths of the void, and there seemed to be countless laws of space-time operating deep inside. Thick chains of the Great Path wrapped around this world, as if it was engraved with dense divine prohibition matrices and runes. All the dragons could feel that this world contained an unfathomable aura. It was as if there was a power above the laws of the universe, and it was incompatible with the laws of the universe of this era. Moreover, the surrounding power of the laws of the universe seemed to be faintly rejecting this world. If it was not for the fact that this world was too sturdy, it would have long been crushed to pieces by the vast power of the universe's origin. Impressive. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. In fact, he could see more than the others. This was not just a simple world. It was basically a miniature version of the universe, and there seemed to be many huge stars born deep inside. These stars automatically operated in the depths of the universe, according to a unique pattern. Countless stars combined together to form a super matrix, and when it came crashing down, it had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. He felt that this sphere was probably more terrifying than he had imagined. Eternal Light Realm. This should be the Eternal Light Realm. Some dragons could not help but exclaim, as expected of a world formed after the fall of the gods. This can be considered a divine kingdom. The laws of the universe operating inside are really unbelievably powerful. I really don't know how terrifying the gods were at their peak. Some primordial dragons looked at the eternal light realm with infatuation. They could feel that the laws of the universe operating in this world were extremely mysterious. They were like precise parts of a machine, and not a single one could be missing. They formed a perfect cycle. This place is indeed very dangerous. Although we haven't entered yet, just seeing the situation in the periphery is enough to prove that this world is not ordinary. Some of the primordial dragons had solemn expressions on their faces. They were extremely confident in their own strength, and believed that they absolutely had the ability to return from the eternal light realm alive. However, after seeing the eternal light realm, they could not help but become cautious. There was no doubt that this was a divine world that exceeded all of their imaginations. Damn it, the other races are here too. The expressions of some of the archaic dragons changed. They sensed the rapid changes in the surrounding space. Time and space began to distort. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, a huge teleportation formation appeared in the void in the distance. Obviously, even though the dragons were extremely fast, the other races weren't slow either. They were only a few minutes behind the dragons, and had also arrived at this place. It was as if as soon as their front foot arrived, these races' rear foot also followed. Crash! Immediately, groups of powerful figures emerged from these teleportation formations. With a flash of light, these figures revealed their original appearances. Giant divine birds stood in the air, their bodies burning with scorching flames. They were like walking suns, and every feather was condensed from flames. Mysterious runes appeared on the feathers, which seemed to contain the power of the laws of the universe. If any of these feathers fell, they would be able to incinerate an entire area. These divine birds were unquestionably phoenixes, mighty beings that could control fire. Their bodies emanated traces of holy aura that were unfathomable. Deep within their bodies flowed an aura of eternity, as if even after death, they could be reborn from the depths of the flames. The Qilin race is here too. The dragons saw that standing next to the phoenixes was a group of powerful Qilins. From their external appearance, they had the head of a lion, the antlers of a deer, the eyes of a tiger, the body of an elk, the scales of a dragon, and the tail of an ox. Their tails were furry like a dragon's tail, with a fleshy corner. The bodies of these Qilins were a bit like musk deer. Qilins had long lives. Even the most ordinary Qilin could live for 2 million years. They could breathe fire, and their voices were like thunder. Their power was in no way inferior to that of the dragons. It's not just the Qilin race. The Kuei race is here too. There was another flash of light, and the dragons discovered that another tyrannical race had been teleported to this place. Powerful Kuei appeared in this place. They were shaped like oxen, and their entire bodies were gray. They had no horns and only one leg. Every time they appeared, there would be a violent storm. Their bodies shone with light like sunlight and moonlight, and their roars were as ear-splitting as thunder. In the past, humans had obtained some Kuei corpses and used their skin to make drums. They also used the bones of thunder beasts as drumsticks. When they beat the drums, the sound of the drums could be heard hundreds of millions of miles away, intimidating enemy soldiers and commanding the world. The Kuei race was also a tyrannical race that had mastered the laws of thunder to the extreme. It was said that the god of the Kuei race was the god of thunder, who controlled the power of thunder in the world. Wherever he went, thunder rumbled, and he was invincible. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In addition to these races, the other powerful divine beast races that had received the news also quickly sent their saints to this place. Clearly, they were also very eager for the treasures of the eternal light realm. If anyone could obtain it, it would be of great benefit to the various races. They were even like the dragon race, a tyrannical race that had survived from the era of the previous universe to this day. They were also life forms that rarely appeared in the universe. So many divine beast races. Yi Mingyao also used the power of the classic of mountains and seas to sense the situation in the outside world at all times. It could be said that she had broadened her horizons. The divine beast race that would never appear in the universe on ordinary days actually appeared at this moment. If these divine beasts appeared in the universe, it would definitely alarm many peak races. This power was also enough to easily reverse the situation of the entire universe. There are indeed many divine beasts. It would be great if I could capture them and imprison them in the classic of mountains and seas. When Xiaoping saw these divine beasts appear, his eyes lit up. He was overwhelmed with emotions and even started drooling. To be honest, his current classic of mountains and seas was still a bit unworthy of its name. Although he had captured many giant dragons to breed in, the species was still too single. Compared to the real classic of mountains and seas, the number and species of creatures were too few. If he could also capture some of these divine beasts, it would definitely be excellent. Yi Mingyao was speechless. She also sensed Xiaoping's thoughts and didn't know what to say. Ordinary people would be somewhat afraid of divine beasts when they encountered them. But this kid was thinking about how to capture them as pets. What did he think of divine beasts? Chapter 2494. At this time, the other races also discovered that the dragon race had also arrived in the vicinity of the eternal light realm. Their expressions all changed. Damn it, why are these four-legged worms so fast? It's only been such a long time. But they've already turned out in full force. It's as if they've never obtained any treasures in their lives. Hee, who doesn't know that these four-legged worms have no abilities at all? They run when they encounter danger, but when it comes to snatching treasures, they guarantee to be the first to attack. This is all famous in the universe. Not only that, but they're also extremely stingy. Every single one of them is a miser. After obtaining treasures, they'll just put them in their lairs and do nothing but watch. The most despicable thing is that these bastards still go around showing off, as if they're afraid that others don't know that they're rich. They act like upstarts, and they can't change this personality, no matter how many years have passed. In short, if the dragon race appears here, it's definitely not a good thing. Many of the divine beasts gritted their teeth. They didn't have a good impression of the dragon race. Although they were all creatures that had survived from the previous era of the universe, their relationship wasn't good. If there was a chance, they would all want to make the other party suffer a huge loss. In fact, before the previous era of the universe was destroyed, they were one of the top races. In order to fight for territory, who knew how many times they had killed each other? This was especially so for the dragon race and the phoenix race. The dragon race and the phoenix race's struggle for hegemony were famous in the previous era. And such a tragic race war had lasted for who knew how many eras. There had long been a deep hatred between them. Even though countless eras had passed, and everyone had met with misfortune, and could only struggle to survive in their lairs, they still couldn't reconcile. Of course, since everyone had met with misfortune, for the sake of their respective races' survival, they wouldn't necessarily fight to the death. Sometimes they would even choose to cooperate. However, if there was a way to make the other party unlucky at a critical moment, they definitely wouldn't give up on the opportunity to hit the dragon race when they were down. And the dragon race naturally knew the other race's attitude towards their own race. Look at these fellows acting so arrogantly. It's as if the dragon race owes them a lot of money. A divine dragon could naturally see the unfriendly gazes of the other races. It seems like in the primordial era, our dragon race used the excuse of having a war with the abyssal demons to borrow many treasures from other races, and made many promissory notes. We still haven't returned them. Some dragons said that the dragon tribe had indeed borrowed a lot of money, but it seemed like the dragon god shrine had found all kinds of excuses to renege on the debt. This made the other clans so angry that they wanted to exterminate the dragon tribe. So what if he owes a lot of money? He borrowed money with his ability, so why should he pay it back? Nowadays, who doesn't know that those who owe money are the bosses? Why don't you treat us better? That's right. If we get angry and don't return the money, won't they cry to death? You can't say that. You still have to pay us back. Our dragon race is a very trustworthy race. It's just that this deadline might take a little longer. It should be done by the time this era of the universe is about to end. In short, don't talk to these poor ghosts. As the saying goes, a phoenix in distress is no better than a chicken. They are no longer a race that can compete with our dragon clan for hegemony. Now it's a situation where one is superior to many. That's right. Our dragon clan is now a super overlord. Our strength far surpasses these fellows. What a group of stingy ghosts. They only borrowed a little money, and they remember it until now. Can't they forget? A group of dragons despised the phoenix, Qilin, and other divine beast races. Hearing these words, Xiaoping was speechless. These dragons were thicker than the city wall. He was a little ashamed of himself. Yi Mengyao, who was hiding in the classic of mountains and seas, looked at Xiaoping with disdain. She felt that this guy was not much better than these giant dragons. At this moment, in the depths of the void, the saints of various races who had reached the invincible realm gathered together. Each of them exuded an aura of supremacy, as if the laws of the universe revolved around them. Each of them was a super life that stood at the peak of the universe, a saint who had reached the invincible realm. If it was in the previous era of the universe, this kind of life would be called a demigod. They were powerful creatures who were half a step into the realm of gods. For this trip to the eternal light realm, we old things shouldn't go. Let the young people go and have a try. We'll just watch from the side. What do you think? The one who spoke was Samuel, the temple master of the dragon god shrine. He was holding a walking stick and wearing sunglasses. He said kindly to the other saints of the invincible realm. Although his tone seemed to be discussing, there was no doubt that even the saints who had reached the invincible realm could not ignore this old monster, who had lived for countless years. Although everyone was a saint who had reached the invincible realm, in fact, there were differences in combat strength in this realm. The weak ones like the invisible dragon Theodore could only run away, and did not have much combat strength. The powerful Samuel, the temple master of the dragon god shrine, was a super existence who could fight against many alone. A dozen saints of the invincible realm couldn't do anything to him. Since Sir Samuel has said so, then this matter is settled. Well, it's not a bad thing to let the young people go. Indeed, if we take action, the others won't have a chance. It's fair. I don't have any objections. Even Master Samuel doesn't plan to take action. It's indeed a good thing for our race. After a few words, these saints of the invincible realm all nodded, and agreed with the proposal of Samuel, the temple master of the dragon god shrine. After all, if the saints of the invincible realm fought, the sky would fall and the earth would crack. There might be some unexpected danger. Of course, this was only a temporary peace. If there were any treasures in the eternal light realm that were useful to the saints of the invincible realm, even if they were shameless, they would personally snatch it without hesitation. Moreover, they actually planned to let these juniors explore the way and see if there was any special danger inside. When there was really no danger inside, it would not be too late for them to take action. These saints of the invincible realm were all old foxes. The stronger they were, the more timid they were. Because they knew a lot of things, they would avoid all kinds of taboos in the universe as much as possible. Then wait. I have to study the secret manuals. I have to cultivate all the time and strive for perfection. With a snap, Samuel, the temple master of the dragon god shrine, said carelessly. He waved his hand, and seemed to take out a beach chair from the space around him. Then he lay in the void. No one knew when a magazine appeared in his hand. The corners of the other saints of the invincible realm twitched. This magazine was the famous adult dragon magazine in the dragon realm. There were many photos of beautiful dragons in it, and they were quite shameless in their clothes. They were speechless. Was reading this kind of magazine cultivation? A group of elders of the dragon god shrine blushed. They turned their faces away one after another, indicating that they didn't know the temple master of the dragon god shrine. Chapter 2495. At this moment, all the holy dragons and the sages of the other races had received orders that the invincible realm sages would not participate in this trip to the Eternal Light Realm. The other sages were free to enter and compete for treasures. If he could obtain any treasure inside, then that treasure would belong to him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Hearing this, the sages were overjoyed. If the Invincible Realm sages did not participate, then they would be able to obtain a lot of treasures on this trip to the Eternal Light Realm. How could they sit still? They immediately flew toward the Eternal Light Realm. Xiaoping did not hesitate and moved quickly. However, he was only a sage in the near ancient realm. He was at the bottom of all the sages, so he was quite inconspicuous. No sages would notice him. This is the Eternal Light Realm? Xiaoping's figure flickered as he followed the dragons toward the Eternal Light Realm. He immediately found that this world was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. The world barrier was incredibly thick, at least several light years thick. Moreover, this world barrier contained dense and powerful formations. If it was at its peak, even if all the sages attacked together, they would not be able to break this world barrier. But now, the Eternal Light Realm seemed to have experienced a terrible disaster, and there were huge holes pierced through it. It was also because of these deep holes that they could enter the Eternal Light Realm. Boom! In the next second, Xiaoping passed through one of the holes and entered the Eternal Light Realm. Immediately, he found that he seemed to have appeared in another small universe. This place was vast and boundless. It should be known that his divine senses had a range of thousands of light years, which was enough to cover a small star area. But in the Eternal Light Realm, it was just the tip of the iceberg. One could imagine how huge the area of the Eternal Light Realm was. He looked over and saw huge planets in front of him, like chess pieces on a chessboard, arranged in a very orderly manner in this cosmic void. It seemed that these planets were the living space of the Eternal Light Realm. I finally entered the Eternal Light Realm. It's really huge. It is said that in the previous universe, this world was called the Divine Kingdom. It is the kingdom of the gods. Only those who are close to the gods or believers can enter. Are all divine kingdoms so huge? No, that's not necessarily the case. Some divine kingdoms are very small, perhaps only a few thousand light years in size. But this Eternal Light Plane is inconceivably huge. Although it's smaller than the Dragon Plane, it's still quite incredible. You can imagine that even in the Age of Gods, a god who possessed the Eternal Light Realm was a rather powerful god. But what exactly is going on with these planets? Those planets are basically life-bearing planets created by the gods, specifically for countless believers to live on. Every planet is a suitable place to live. But according to the requirements of the gods, some planets are commercial planets that are only responsible for trading. Some are agricultural planets that are responsible for planting large amounts of elixirs, spiritual fields, and so on. Some are forging planets that seem to specialize in forging all kinds of powerful magical treasures and weapons. And some planets contain the true secrets of the gods, which can be considered the top secrets of the Divine Kingdom. I've heard of this before. It seems that there is a supreme planet in the Eternal Light Realm, that is the palace of the gods. Normally the gods live there. If you can find it, you'll be able to find countless treasures, and even the secret to becoming a god. It's not that simple. In the ancient times, many saints entered the Eternal Light Realm to search, but after searching for a long time, they still couldn't find this origin star. Some saints thought that after the gods fell, this origin star was destroyed and disappeared, so they couldn't find it. Not necessarily. Didn't some saints say that this planet may be hidden in the depths of the space-time of the Eternal Light Realm, hidden by a tyrannical restrictive formation? So it can't be found? Maybe we can find it this time. I hope so. In short, even if we can't find this origin star, we can still find other treasures. That's right. We don't need the secret to becoming a god, just a little treasure. The magic treasures leaked from the fingertips of the gods are enough to fill our stomachs. The giant dragons discussed among themselves. Because everyone was a member of the dragon clan, they didn't hide the information they knew and directly told the others about it, so that the other dragons would have a certain degree of understanding of the cosmic realm. Interesting. Xiaoping touched his chin. According to these dragons, The most precious treasures in this place were naturally hidden on the origin star. But other planets might also hide a lot of treasures. However, he sensed around and found that many planets had been severely damaged, completely turned into dead stars. Planets that really hid treasures were still extremely rare. But the Eternal Light Realm was really too big. Wanting to find treasures in such a boundless place was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. At this moment, other dragons and other living beings of other races scattered in all directions. They planned to carry out a carpet search and see who was lucky enough to find treasures. But Xia Ping didn't want to rely on luck to find treasures, which was really too stupid. Betty. At this time, Xia Ping moved his mind and immediately grabbed the Dragon of Destiny Betty from the world of the classic of mountains and seas. He wanted to use Betty's power to find treasures in this place. What are you doing, adult dragon? Don't you know I'm eating? At this moment, Betty looked at Xia Ping angrily. Her mouth was stuffed with a pile of delicious food, and she was eating with relish. She didn't expect to be caught by this detestable adult dragon. To be honest, she was a little too happy in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. This place had endless delicious food, like-minded companions, and endless scenery. She didn't even need to worry about her own safety. She was carefree. Eat, eat, eat. All you know is to eat. What if you become a fat dragon in the future? Hurry up and help me find treasures in this place. Xia Ping reached out and knocked her on the head. Damn it. Betty glared at Xia Ping angrily. She wanted to eat this bastard adult dragon like a meat bun. But the moment she appeared in this place, she found that the power of destiny in her body was increasing crazily. It was as if this was an incredible place. The power in her body was also increasing rapidly because of the increase in the power of destiny. On that planet has the treasure you need the most right now. Suddenly, her eyes seemed to turn into the swastika symbol. It was as if she could see the other side of the river of destiny and countless scenes and fragments of the future. She instinctively told him what she knew. That planet. Looking in the direction that Betty was pointing, Xia Ping's heart stirred. He immediately sensed that a small planet hidden nearby seemed to be emitting waves of space-time fluctuations. Chapter 2497. Adult Dragon, you have to be careful. At this time, Fate Dragon Betty's expression was very solemn. I can sense that this world seems to be shrouded in darkness. Almost every dragon is surrounded by an aura of death. It seems that a great disaster and conspiracy are staring at us. If we're not careful, we might all be wiped out. What do you mean? Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. I'm not sure. I just feel that there's a great danger lurking, but I can't see fate clearly. It seems that there's a powerful force distorting this space and time, blinding my perception of fate. Fate Dragon Betty shook her head. She also didn't know what was going on. She just felt that there was a great danger lurking, but she didn't know what the danger was. Okay, I understand. I'll be careful during this time. Hearing this, Xia Ping nodded. In fact, he also vaguely felt that there was a great danger in this eternal light realm. Perhaps he wasn't as clear as Fate Dragon Betty, but he still had a bad premonition. However, he was skilled and daring, and his ability to stay alive was extremely strong. Therefore, even though he knew that this place was full of danger, he still followed. After all, if one wanted to obtain a fortuitous encounter, how could one not take risks? Whoosh. After saying this, he immediately released Fate Dragon Betty back into the world of the classic of mountains and seas. After all, this place was too dangerous for young dragons. If any accidents happened, with his strength, he might not be able to protect her. Is this the place? Xia Ping's figure flickered as he shuttled through the void. In a few breaths, he arrived at the place that Fate Dragon Betty had pointed out. He immediately came to a huge planet. Unfortunately, this planet seemed to be in a state of desolation. There was a deathly stillness everywhere, as if it had been distorted by a great destructive force. All living things on this planet had died, without exception. Even the buildings on this planet had been destroyed. Perhaps because of the passage of time, even these buildings could not withstand the corrosion of time, and gradually weathered away. He walked on this planet and felt a great desolation, as if it was after the end of the world. Oh, what is this? Suddenly, Xiaoping used his divine sense to envelop the entire planet, conducting a carpet search in an attempt to find the secrets of this planet and what treasures were hidden. Boom! At this moment, he sensed that there seemed to be many terrifying space-time cracks appearing in one of the huge mountain ranges on this planet. Each crack extended for thousands of kilometers, and from time to time, terrifying space-time storms would pass through. Even the ancient sages might not be able to withstand such a power. Moreover, there seemed to be a unique flower growing in the depths of these spatial rifts. It was around the size of a palm, and it was translucent. It seemed to contain circles of space-time Tao markings, and it emanated an unfathomable aura. Master, this is the space-time flower. The Azure Ox also followed Xiaoping's divine sense, and immediately saw the unique flower hidden in the depths of space-time. It was Xiaoping's artifact spirit. The two of them had long reached the realm of one with the artifact, fusing their souls together. Therefore, both of them could use the other's divine sense as their own eyes to sense everything around them. When he saw the flower, the green ox was immediately overjoyed. Oh my God, I never thought that such a top-notch sacred medicine, the space-time flower, would grow in this place. It is said that such a flower contains the innate power of space-time. It is a fusion of the laws of time and space. After consuming it, one's comprehension of the laws of time and space would increase by more than 100 times. If an immortal sage consumed the space-time flower, he would definitely advance to the peak of the Middle Ages sage with the passage of time. This was equivalent to obtaining an innate body of space-time. However, this sacred medicine is too difficult to produce. In billions of epochs, there might not even be one. The environment it grows in is also extremely harsh. It must be in a stable space-time crack, and it must devour the power of space-time for countless epochs in order to grow. I originally thought that this sacred medicine was just a legend, because not many sages have seen it since ancient times. It only appeared in some ancient books. I never thought that I would actually see the space-time flower in this place. He was extremely excited. He had not expected to see such an incredible sacred medicine the moment he entered the eternal light realm. This sacred medicine should have been extinct in the universe a long time ago. As expected of the cave abode of a god, he could find such a sacred medicine anywhere. There were simply too many benefits to be obtained by entering this place. Space-time flower? Xiaoping's eyes suddenly lit up. To be honest, he was now at the peak of the near-ancient realm. He was just one step away from advancing to the Middle Ages realm and comprehending the law of time. He estimated that it would not be long before he could automatically advance to the Middle Ages realm. However, if he could obtain this space-time flower and improve his understanding of the law of time, he might be able to advance to the Middle Ages sage in an instant. One had to know that the near-ancient sages were only existences at the bottom of the eternal light realm. However, it would be different if he advanced to the Middle Ages sage. His combat power would at least increase by several times. At the very least, he would be able to protect himself in the eternal light realm and not become cannon fodder. However, before he could make a move, 13 auras immediately flew over from afar. Among them, 7 were near-ancient peak sages, and 6 were Middle Ages sages. Impressively, these sages were all from the Qilin clan. Each of them emitted a tyrannical space-time aura, as if they had already suppressed this space-time. Haha, our luck is really too good. Space-time flower, this is the famous space-time flower. It is said that after consuming it, one's understanding of the law of time and space will increase. It is also very beneficial to the Middle Ages sages. Isn't that so? If you want to advance to the ancient sages' realm, you must integrate the law of time and space and raise it to its peak state. Only then can you truly understand the law of creation and advance to the immemorial ancient realm. Without a doubt, this is an opportunity for us to attain the Tao. It is indeed the right decision to come to the eternal light realm. We have just arrived here, and we have already obtained such a great reward. The group of Qilin clan sages laughed out loud. They were wild with joy as they looked at the space-time flower in the space-time crack greedily. They felt as if they had suddenly struck the jackpot of $1 billion. Wait a minute. It seems that there is also someone from the dragon clan here. Moreover, it was that guy who wanted to come here. At this moment, an ancient Middle Realm Qilin immediately looked over and noticed Xia Ping's existence. Swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, more than 10 Qilin clan sages looked over and looked at the weak and lonely Xia Ping mockingly. Remember the mobile website, Chapter 2502, Spacetime Flower, page 1/1. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2498. As expected, there's a four-legged worm here. A middle ancient Qilin laughed loudly. Looks like we're really lucky. Not only did we get a flower of time and space, but we also got to see a lone dragon. There's nothing better than this. I was really shocked when I first saw it. I thought we were so unlucky to have encountered an ancient dragon. I didn't expect it to be a near ancient dragon. The heavens are really on our side. Isn't that so? A mere near ancient dragon is at the bottom of the eternal realm. How dare he travel alone with such strength? He's really not afraid of death. When these Qilins saw Xia Ping and sensed his strength, they all laughed happily. After all, they had 13 sages, 6 of whom were in the Middle Ancient Realm, and 7 of whom were at the peak of the Near Ancient Realm. They could probably beat this guy up with their eyes closed. It would be effortless. Facing such a weakling, one could imagine how excited and proud they were. Four-legged worm, get over here right now. A Middle Ancient Qilin shouted arrogantly. If I were one step slower, I would have broken your legs. How dare you travel alone without any strength? You must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. You're really unlucky to have met us today. Although there's no enmity between us, you're a dragon. If I don't teach you a lesson today, who else can I teach a lesson to? It was very proud of Xia Ping. It wanted to vent its anger from being bullied by the dragon clan on Xia Ping. The other Qilins felt the same way. They had had enough of the dragons. Each of them was arrogant, owed money, and did not return it. They were extremely stingy and arrogant. Who could stand them? Soul shriek. Xia Ping did not even look at them. He immediately to think that they would dare to golden act so arrogantly in front of Master. In an instant, just this bit of strength, his body as the center, they really don't even know how to write the word soul fluctuations. The green generated. Looked at the captured. They instantly spread to the entire planet. It had been a long time since it had seen such an idiot in time. He didn't even know the difference in strength between them. Immediately, yet he dared to do such a dozen or so Qilins. Wasn't he looking for whether death? They were in the near ancient realm? I didn't expect our luck to be so good today. We're not only did we find the space-time flower, it was as if someone had hammered their heads to capture and their memories went blank. Our luck is really not bad. When Xia Ping was rampaging in hell, scripture, a single soul shriek was enough to annihilate 200,000 void monsters. He was in a good mood. How could these Qilin sages withstand it? Lone Qilins. Moreover, he within the mountain and power of his soul shriek. Yimingyao's mouth twitched. He only wanted to stun these Qilins. She was speechless and didn't know what to say. Power. These were more than 10 would all die. Crash. If they were in the universe, while the Qilins were in a daze, they would be a huge force that no one would dare to offend, and used but the in front of this kid, technique they were a bunch of lone instantly capture all the Qilins. She had really underestimated and bring them into the mountain and but after seeing the strength that Xia Ping had displayed, the speed of the battle she had to admit that these Qilins were no match for him. There was practically no damage if done. They wanted to fight even against Xia Ping, Qilins wanted to call for help. They would have to be at least there was nothing they could do. Realm sages. Tui, the bloodline of these Qilins is really interesting. It seems to contain a bit of the power of luck. Xia Ping's consciousness seeped into the bodies of these unconscious Qilins. He could sense that their bloodline was really different from the bloodline of the dragon race. He had once thought of all the legends about Qilins. They were called auspicious beasts by people. It was as if wherever Qilins appeared, they would bring luck and good weather. Perhaps this wasn't some baseless rumor. It was indeed true. These Qilins contain the power of luck within their bodies. They could pry into the trajectory of fate. That was why they would bring benefits every time they appeared. Perhaps the bloodline deep within the bodies of Qilins contained this mysterious power. This was also the power that the gods of the Qilin race grasped. This was the power of the gods. In reality, the power within the bodies of the descendants of the divine beasts was the manifestation of the power of the gods. It wasn't just Qilins. The descendants of the dragon race, Taotai Phoenix, and even the descendants of the Golden Crow of Hell were the same. Forget it. I won't look into this for now. I'll pick the flower of time and space first. Xiaoping put aside the matter of studying the Qilin bloodline for now. He could look into this at any time. The most important thing at the moment was to obtain a large number of treasures in the Eternal Light Realm. This was the most important thing. Swoosh. When he thought of this, he grabbed with his hand and used the Golden Crow of Hell's claw. He easily crossed countless space-time layers and arrived at the depths of the space-time crack. With a thud, this big hand grabbed the flower of time and space. Okay, I finally got it. In the next second, Xiaoping grabbed the flower of time and space with a smile on his face. He could sense that the flower of time and space contained a mysterious power of time and space. The nomological laws of time and the nomological laws of space were perfectly combined. It seemed to be showing him the ultimate mystery of the nomological laws of time and space. Congratulations, Master. The Green Bull was overjoyed. He knew that after obtaining this flower of time and space, he would become a middle-aged saint and comprehend the nomological laws of time. Let's go. I'll find a safe place to cultivate in seclusion and advance to the middle-age realm. After hearing the words of the Dragon of Fate Betty, Xiaoping decided not to hesitate anymore. He would take this opportunity to advance to the middle-age realm and further improve his strength. As for the treasures in the Eternal Light Realm, it wouldn't be too late to look for them after he became stronger. After all, the Eternal Light Realm was so huge that it was impossible to plunder everything in a short period of time. As the saying went, sharpening one's axe would not delay the work of cutting firewood. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to obtain more benefits. This was an unchanging principle since ancient times. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaoping's figure flashed, and he immediately left this place. He headed for an abandoned planet nearby and hid himself in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. Third Sect Leader. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.